After being enfeoffed as a god, there were constantly great immortals who proved themselves to be holy, causing instability in the heavenly way and the collapse of order. In order to drive these advanced immortals out of this universe, the heavenly way had to self-destruct the heavenly way, causing a catastrophe for the immortals. To the point where Hongjun had to lead the immortals to escape this universe, only King Zhou, who was enfeoffed as the heavenly joy star, refused to leave. In the end, he voluntarily reincarnated and entered the mortal realm. Chapter 1. Tiankeng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the back mountain of Jiangnan Medical College, several boys gathered around a body lying on the ground, looking panicked. Tianyang, wake up, don't pretend to be dead. Hurry up and get up for me. The speaker was a tall and stylish guy, who was already sweating nervously despite his handsome appearance. Brother Liang, he won't really die, will he? A slightly thinner boy beside him also looked flustered. If we really die, then we're just killing. What should we do? Killing means going to jail, and I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail either, ah. The other two classmates were also looking flustered and very scared, unsure of what to do for a moment. Shut up. Don't say anything more, the person known as Brother Liang shouted loudly. Don't talk, let's calm down first. After about 3 minutes in an extremely tense atmosphere, Liang Gu finally spoke up, it seems that he is really dead. If everyone doesn't want to go to jail, just listen to me. We'll carry him to the sinkhole and throw him into it. Throw into the sinkhole. Everyone was shocked, but after calming down, they thought carefully and unanimously agreed with this plan, because they were all just college students. If the murder was exposed, not only would their beautiful college life be ruined, but they would also face imprisonment. The only thing they can do now is to throw their bodies into the sinkhole. The Tiankeng on the back mountain of Jiangnan Medical College is said to have a history of thousands of years and is said to be bottomless. So far, only a scientific research team has entered it once. It is said that even after exploring for nearly a kilometer, it still did not reach the bottom and had to give up exploring. So these 4 people unanimously believe that throwing a corpse into a sinkhole is the most perfect solution. Everyone move quickly to avoid being discovered, said the boy named Liang, and the 4 of them carried the bodies on the ground towards the sinkhole together. Not long after, the 4 of them had already carried their bodies to the edge of the sinkhole. Looking at the sinkhole with a diameter of 100 meters and a depth that was bottomless, everyone couldn't help but feel uneasy. I'll count 3, 2, 1, everyone throw it in together. Liang looked at everyone and nodded together. 3, 2, 1. Just as Brother Liang shouted the last word, Tianyang, who was being carried by everyone, suddenly woke up. Don't. It was already too late. When Tianyang shouted, don't, everyone had already thrown him out, and his body fell towards the bottom of the sinkhole like a parabola. Damn it, you didn't wake up early or late, but you just woke up after throwing it out. It seems you really deserve to die too. The boy named Liang said fiercely to the sinkhole, Wang Xiaoqi, Zhou Wen, He Bing, I want you to swear that today's situation will rot in your stomachs, otherwise everyone will have no good end, understand? We understand, everyone answered, and together they made a vow. At this moment, the 3 of them were filled with infinite regret. Just because Zhao Liang was jealous, they participated in a murder case, which was not worth it. However, it was at this point, and they had no choice. Looking at the bottomless sinkhole, Zhao Liang handed each of them a cigarette, then lit one himself and took a strong puff before spitting out the long cigarette ring. I also know that everyone was trying to help me, but this kind of thing happened purely by accident, and I never thought of killing anyone. As compensation, I will transfer 10,000 yuan to each of you tomorrow. From now on, everyone will still be good brothers. What do you think? After listening, everyone glanced at each other and then nodded to accept, listen to everything from Brother Liang. Then the 4 of them walked down the mountain together. At this moment, Tianyang was still rapidly declining, filled with fear but helpless, as if the bottom of this pit was leading to hell, and all that was in sight was darkness. I don't know how long it had been falling, but suddenly Tianyang felt like his body had passed through some kind of barrier. Then, as if gravity had been counteracted, his speed quickly weakened, and finally began to slowly descend. When he began to look around, he found that there was already light, and then he saw a deep pool welcoming him. Tianyang thought that the pool water would be icy and piercing, but as his body entered the pool, it gave him an exceptionally soft feeling, as if it was not pool water, but a kind of heaven and earth spiritual liquid. The spiritual liquid entered the body through the skin and then wandered through the meridians, making Tianyang feel that this thing was definitely not ordinary. He enjoyed it to his heart's content and even drank it in large gulps. I don't know how long it took, but Tianyang walked out of the deep pool and arrived at an exit by the pool. At this moment, he felt full of strength, and every cell contained infinite essence and spirit. If Tianyang had a mirror at this time, he would probably be even more surprised because he not only grew taller, but also had a more perfect body proportion. His skin had a copper-yellow luster, and his appearance was even more handsome than before. At this moment, he stood at the exit and saw that the deep pool was actually halfway up the mountain. His gaze covered a wonderful world, with beautiful mountains and rivers, a breathtaking aura, and a vibrant scene. You finally came out. Suddenly, a voice appeared in Tianyang's ear. In this sudden situation, Tianyang almost fell back in fear. Who's talking? Tianyang looked around in panic, but found no one. Don't be blind, I'm right next to you. At this moment, Tianyang was even more surprised than before, because he finally knew who was talking to him. The stone sculpture crouching at the entrance of the cave. The stone sculpture looked like a cow, but it didn't look like an ordinary cow. Are you talking to me? Oh my God, when can a stone carving also speak? I'm not dreaming, am I? Tianyang pinched his face and rubbed his eyes. That's right, I'm talking to you, but I'm not a stone carving. I'm just a body that has been reincarnated, but my soul consciousness is still there. Nirvana. Soul consciousness. Although Tianyang has also read fantasy novels in his daily life, the shock these words have given him is still unimaginable. Can it be that I have traveled through time? It cannot be said that time travel, this is a small world opened up by the Heavenly Lord, hidden in the center of the earth, so it is still on earth. Xian seemed to see Tianyang's confusion. The inner world of the earth. Is there such a large inner world hidden within the earth? Is the earth's interior so empty? Tianyang felt even more incredulous. The inner world of earth does not mean that the interior of earth is empty, and the path of space is not something that ordinary people can understand. You may not understand it now, but you have experienced spiritual pool shaping and have shed your mortal body. In the future, you will also have the opportunity to explore the path of space, said Xian slowly. I haven't asked how to address you yet. Tianyang became more and more confused as he listened, so he first asked about the cow statue and prepared to slowly inquire. Just call me Kue Xian. I was originally Kue Nyoshan, but after the great cataclysm, my body was nirvana. Now it's my primordial spirit communicating with you. Kue Nyo. The divine beast Kue Nyo. Tianyang exclaimed in surprise. That's right, I'm actually a Kue ox body, but I'm not even considered a divine beast. Only my ancestors are considered divine beasts. My ancestors are mounts of the heavenly sovereign, and my cultivation during my peak period was only that of a Kaitian immortal, far from being a true divine beast. Sigh. Kue Xian looked back on things like an old man. Kue Xian, can you tell me exactly what's going on? I have too many questions. Tianyang had many questions, but for a moment he didn't know which one to ask. Sigh, okay. Let me tell you a lot today. It's been too long since I last spoke to anyone. Over 3,000 years ago, there were countless immortals and gods in the vast world, and numerous heavenly pride emerged, causing a scarcity of resources and unstable rules in this world. In order to stabilize the balance of the universe, the sages launched a list of gods and gods, which led to a war between immortals and gods, and countless gods and demons fell. Finally, the rules of heaven and earth were briefly restored. However, even so, catastrophe still occurred. Lingbao Heavenly Sovereign pities us cultivators below the golden immortal level, using the innate treasure immortal slaying sword formation to open up this inner earth world and hide us here in order to avoid calamity. The voice of Kuei Xian slowly came over. Lingbao Heavenly Master. Isn't that the leader of the Tongtian sect? He would have given up killing the immortal sword for the sake of you low-level cultivators, such a precious treasure. Where have Lingbao Heavenly Master and his companions gone? Tianyang was puzzled because according to folklore, the leader of the Tongtian sect was a major villain. I don't know where the Heavenly Lord went. When the catastrophe came, only those above the golden immortal level were qualified to follow the Heavenly Lord across the realm and escape from this universe. We managed to survive the catastrophe under the protection of the immortal sword formation, but even if we were hiding in this inner earth world, many of my old friends and I were also reincarnated. What? With the protection of the immortal killing formation and the incarnation of nirvana. That catastrophe is too terrifying, isn't it? Tianyang heard it heart-wrenching. Yeah, the higher the cultivation level, the more nirvana one receives. The cultivation level of the heavenly immortal is the highest in this earthly world, but it doesn't have much influence below the heavenly immortal. I see. By the way, Kuei Xian, how should I get out? Tianyang finally expressed his worries. Although the inner world of the earth is very good, it's not an exaggeration to say it's the fairy world, but he will eventually go out. His teachers, classmates, and family must be looking for him, and if they can't find him, they will be very anxious. I don't know about this either. Back then, the Heavenly Lord didn't tell us the way to go out, and we tried many times, but we couldn't go out either. However, since you are from outside, since you can come in, you should also be able to go out. You don't need to worry for now. In such a good place, you should practice first. When you have cultivation, find a way to go out, otherwise you will starve here. Cultivation. How long will it take? It's said that cultivators can cultivate for several years or even decades. It has to wait, and my parents have to worry about death. Tianyang looked at the world in front of him, feeling tearless in his heart. Chapter 2. Amazing Cultivation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After feeling depressed for a while, Tianyang finally made up his mind to cultivate, but he didn't know how to do it. Even if the spiritual energy in the inner world was abundant, he didn't know where to start. At this point, he could only ask Kuei Nyo for help. Kuei Xian Sr., could you teach me a few immortal techniques? Otherwise, I really don't know how to cultivate. Tianyang knew that it was a bit difficult for others to master. Every immortal technique is everyone's secret. He met Kuei Nyo for the first time and was not a relative. It was a bit excessive to ask someone to teach him the immortal technique for cultivation. No problem, it's just a matter of immortality. What I have here is that you can choose any one you want to cultivate. Kuei Nyo's answer made Tianyang overjoyed. Then, 3 beams of light appeared in front of Tianyang's eyes. The left beam of light flickered with 5 words, Qiankun creation technique, which looked very domineering. Then, he looked at the middle beam of light, divine demon battle body technique, which sounded good. In the end, he looked at the far right beam of light, but this beam of light was quite special, without words, but in the shape of a sword. Senior, this. Tianyang felt that these 3 martial arts were all very extraordinary, and could even be top-notch immortal techniques. However, he didn't understand why Quinyu was just a celestial being and could easily bring out so many top-notch immortal techniques to him. You don't need to be polite, just choose as you like. These three are all top-level innate martial arts, and the divine and demon battle body formula in the middle is a martial arts technique that the demon ancestor Luo Xian has practiced. As for the other two, they are also top-level martial arts that were born in the chaotic era, but no one has practiced them. Back then, the Heavenly Lord was deeply loved by the Hongjun ancestor and privately gave him many good things. When the catastrophe came, the Heavenly Lord kept all these good things because he believed that these treasures were born in this universe and should be left with some hope for the descendants of this universe. As my ancestor is the Heavenly Lord's mount, this burden fell on him. In me, you are the first descendant to enter the inner earth world in 3,000 years, so just choose me. After listening to Kuei Nyo's words, Yi Tianyang's liking for the leader of the Tongtian sect increased once again. People thought that Tongtian was the villain, but they didn't know that those were just legends. Young generation Yi Tianyang, thank you to the senior for your great kindness. In that case, I will choose the sword-shaped cultivation method. Yi Tianyang looked to the right, although he didn't know the specific name of this cultivation method, it was at least at the same level as the cultivation method that the demon lord Luo Xian had practiced. Moreover, he fell into the inner world opened up by this immortal sword formation, which can be considered to be related to the sword, so he also preferred the sword-shaped cultivation method. Okay, as you wish. As Kuei Nyo finished speaking, the two beams of light disappeared instantly, while the remaining sword-shaped beam of light disappeared into Yi Tianyang's eyebrows. Yi Tianyang's brain stabbed and then his eyes became sharp, emitting a sword-shaped radiance. Countless information flooded his brain, and finally converged into 8 big characters. Chaos to righteousness, one sword without end. The 8 characters then slowly evolved into 4 characters. Zhu Tian sword technique. Zhu Tian, Zhu Xian. Is this Zhu Tian sword technique related to Zhu Xian sword? Yi Tianyang looked at these 4 words incredulously. According to legend, the Zhu Xian sword is the treasure of chaos. It was born before the beginning of chaos. There were 4 Zhu Xian swords in total, namely Zhu Xian sword, Lu Xian sword, Sinking Xian sword, and Zhu Xian sword. They were wrapped in the Zhu Xian formation diagram, and the demon lord Luo Gui obtained the Zhu Xian sword, intending to command the gods and demons to become the masters of the universe. Pangu was the first to disagree, so a great war broke out in chaos. Pangu chopped open the chaos with one axe and injured Luo Gui. However, when Luo Gui offered the Zhu Xian sword, Pangu was pressed and beaten, and even though in the end, Pangu fought his way to death, he could only reluctantly let Luo Gui be seriously injured. Later, Hongjun ancestor appeared and took advantage of the demon's serious injury to suppress Luo Gui and put the Zhu Xian sword in his bag. However, he believed that the Zhu Xian sword had too much evil energy and was easy to kill the master, so he did not let this sword recognize the master. Instead, he gave this sword to the master of the Tongtian sect and advised him to use it carefully. Later, the Zhu Xian sword became the biggest weapon of the master of the Tongtian sect in the War of Sealing the Gods, and finally broke the Zhu Xian formation with the joint efforts of the 4 saints. Let's forget about it for now, cultivation matters. Yi Tianyang withdrew his thoughts and began to find a place to practice. You don't need to search, the best place is in the spirit pool, where spiritual energy is transformed into liquid. There should be no better place for cultivation in this inner earth world than this. Just as Yi Tianyang didn't know where to practice, Kuei Nyo's voice came in. Thank you, senior. Yi Tianyang then turned around and entered the spirit pool, using the Zhu Tian sword technique in his mind. He quickly transformed the spiritual energy into sword energy and swam throughout his body, eventually converging in the Dantian. Repeating this cycle after about a stick of incense, Yi Tianyang's elixir field had formed a light rhyme, and he was overjoyed to practice 1 layer of qi. Kuei Nyo at the entrance of the cave was also a bit surprised by all of this. In just 1 stick of incense, he started practicing qi, which was rare in the era of the gods. At this moment, Tianyang had also completely entered a state of cultivation, with spiritual energy rushing into his body like a vortex, and even a sword-shaped radiance had emerged from his chest. Practice without time. Unconsciously, 3 days had passed, and just as Tianyang was immersed in his selfless cultivation, Kuei Nyo's voice came to his ear, "You should stop. I noticed that someone was coming." Tianyang's intentions were still lingering, but he dared not ignore Kuei Nyo's words. He was not the only one in this inner earth world. Although these were low-level cultivators who could not follow the leader of the Tongtian sect to leave in the past, compared to him now, they were the Tongtian giant arms, and he could easily crush his existence. After checking his cultivation and practicing the 9th level of Qi, he felt a bit regretful. If he were allowed to practice for another day, he would definitely be able to complete his Qi cultivation. However, what he didn't know was that at this time, Kuei Nyo's soul expression could be described as looking at monsters. There were human geniuses during the period of the gods, but he had never seen one who reached the 9th level of Qi cultivation in 3 days. Although the spiritual energy in the spiritual pool was very abundant, this kind of spiritual pool was really nothing in the era of the gods. Is it possible that his arrival was arranged by heaven? At this moment, a figure appeared in front of them in an instant. Kuei Xian Sr., long time no see. A fairy-like woman bowed to Kuei Nyo. So it's a doll from Sanshao Palace. What are you doing here? Returning to the senior Kuei Xian, Honglian felt the abnormal fluctuation of the spiritual energy in the Zhu Xian sword eye, and was worried about any unexpected events, so she came to investigate. After finishing speaking, Honglian looked at Tianyang beside Kuei Nyo. With me guarding here, there won't be any accidents. Do you think I don't have the strength to defend the eye of the immortal sword? Kuei Nyo revealed his dissatisfaction. I dare not, Honglian is just concerned. The Taoist friend in front of me looks very familiar, I don't know how to call him. Honglian smiled at Tianyang and asked. But at this moment, Tianyang couldn't speak at all. The pressure from Honglian was too strong, making him unable to breathe and his body involuntarily retreating. Red Lotus doll, don't act recklessly. This is my territory. Don't think that if my body turns into a nirvana, you can be arrogant in front of me. I have more than enough to deal with you, a local immortal. Kuei Nyo immediately released a wave of pressure from his body, and Red Lotus was immediately forced to retreat 2 zhang. Senior, you're joking. How dare Honglian dare to be reckless in your territory? However, this Taoist seems unfamiliar to you. Although there are also human beings in our world of killing immortals, I haven't heard of cultivators in the 9th level of Qi refining. If I remember correctly, our world has not reproduced for nearly 100 years, and the youngest one has also transformed into a divine realm. Honglian said, taking a few more steps forward. Is it possible that outsiders have come to our world, and our Sanshao Palace doesn't even have the qualification to ask questions? Red Lotus doll, if you have any questions, I didn't say I won't tell you, but your Sanshao Palace's behavior is indeed domineering. I don't care if you are arrogant in other places, but in my territory, it's better for you to be polite. I might as well tell you about this kid's background. He is a human race from the outside world. It really comes from the outside world. Although she had already guessed in her heart, Honglian couldn't help but feel excited. They had been hiding in this small world for over 3,000 years, and finally had news from the outside world. How could she not be excited? That's right, he not only comes from the outside world, but also from the outside world. He has only been here for 4 days, Kuei Nyo interrupted Red Lotus's thoughts. Ordinary person. Isn't she refining the 9th layer of Qi? How could it be? Can you say that he refined the 9th layer of Qi after practicing here for 4 days? After listening to Kuei Nyo's words, Red Lotus was even more surprised. You should know that she has been practicing for so many years, and has never heard of someone who cultivates to the 9th level of Qi refining in 4 days. You're surprised, I'm even more surprised than you. To be precise, he has only been practicing for 3 days. Perhaps this kind of genius was sent to us by heaven, or perhaps it was the hope left by the Heavenly Lord for us. Red Lotus was indescribably excited upon hearing Kuei Nyo's words. Today, not only did she see people from outside, but she was also a genius who brought hope to them. Perhaps this genius could lead them out of this cage-like shelter. Yes, it was a cage. Although they escaped the catastrophe, they were also trapped in this small world. Although this small world has sufficient spiritual energy, the rules of heaven and earth are too low. For so many years, no one has broken through the shackles of earth immortals and become a celestial being, and the older generation of celestial beings have also been transformed into bodies by the catastrophe, struggling to survive. If they can really leave this small world and go to the vast world outside, then perhaps they can break through the shackles and become true immortals. Although the distance between the earth immortal and the heavenly immortal is only a narrow line, everyone understands that only the heavenly immortal is immortal. If it's true, as the senior said, that Honglien is willing to lead the way, please feel free to give orders for what we need from the Three Knights Palace. At this point, Honglien no longer had the posture she had when she first arrived, because this hope was too precious for her. No. It should be said that it is extremely precious to the people of the entire small world. Since that's the case, let him continue his cultivation. If it weren't for your disturbance, he might have built the foundation tonight. Only after he builds the foundation can he possibly find a way out, Kuei Nyo complained. Building the foundation tonight. This kind of cultivation speed is also amazing. Chapter 3. What is Daoji? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianyang didn't know what to say, but after bowing to the two masters, he turned around and entered the spiritual pool for cultivation. The cultivation of qi by a cultivator belongs to the beginner level of cultivation, and being able to bring spiritual energy into the body is considered qualified for cultivation. However, the speed of Tianyang's cultivation is too fast. Not only is the spiritual energy entering the body extremely fast, but the spiritual element transformation is also fast. In theory, as an ordinary mortal, he has never been exposed to any cultivation methods before. Even if he has undergone spiritual pool washing, he should not have such talent, but his cultivation is indeed increasing at an extremely fast speed. Even Kuei Nyo and Red Lotus are very puzzled about this. Can it be that he is a reincarnation of gods and demons? As Tianyang activated the Zhu Tian sword technique and entered the Zhou Tian cycle, his Dantian Qi Si continued to become full, with 9 layers of halo hovering like 9 sword Qi wandering dragons. It is unknown how long it took for Tianyang's Dantian halo to reach its peak. No matter how he used his techniques, his Dantian Qi Si showed no signs of increasing. Tianyang knew that his refining of Qi had been completed. Not bad. Kuei Nyo couldn't help but praise Tianyang as he walked out of the spirit pool and arrived at the cave entrance. And Honglien came directly to Tianyang, taking out a ring and handing it to him. These are the pills and materials needed to build the foundation, which can be considered as my gift to you. I hope it can help you successfully build the foundation. As she spoke, Honglien's smile never stopped, staring at Tianyang like a treasure. Thank you, senior. Tianyang took the ring and quickly lowered his head to take a few steps back. In the outside world, he had never been in love before, and how could he bear to be stared at by a female fairy like this? Although this Red Lotus is already several thousand years old, in terms of appearance and beauty, it is definitely a female fairy-level existence in the outside world. Coupled with the unique immortal aura of cultivators, it gives people a feeling of not daring to blaspheme. Just as Tianyang's face was hot and he didn't know what to do, Kuei Nyo's voice came in. Alright, Honglien doll, you don't want to tease this kid anymore. You also gave him a gift. You can go back to your Sanshao palace now. That's not possible. Building a foundation is a big deal, I need to protect him here. Red Lotus ignored Kuei Nyo's order to leave and sat down at the entrance without leaving. You. Anyway, do as you please. Kuei Nyo also knew there was no way to take the Red Lotus, so he decided to let him go and said to Tianyang, you go in and build the foundation. We will protect you here. Yes, senior. Tianyang heard this and entered the spirit pool again. After everything was ready, he put the foundation pill into his mouth and communicated with the Zhu Tian sword technique. However, when he realized that the Zhu Tian sword technique had no cultivation method in its foundation chapter, he was dumbfounded because it only had 7 big characters. The combination of man and sword is the foundation. Tianyang had the desire to cry. What kind of immortal technique is this? The critical stage is only a few 7 words. What should we do? At this moment, the energy of the foundation building pill had already spread throughout his body, and Tianyang's whole body became hot and dry, feeling uncomfortable. However, at this moment, he had no idea what to do. The unity of man and sword is the foundation. At this moment, Tianyang kept repeating these 7 words in his mind. Since the cultivation method only gave these 7 words, the key to the problem should also be these words. Tianyang's Dantian Qi Si is constantly trying to blend under the action of building foundation pills, but no matter how compressed it is, it cannot merge together. The situation has become very dangerous. If there is no way to find a way, he may be a newborn genius about to fall. The more at this moment, the more Tianyang knows to remain calm. People and swords are one, people are swords, swords are people, my heart is swords, swords are me. I can kill enemies thousands of miles away with just one thought, and only when my thoughts reach and swords reach, is the unity of people and swords. Therefore, my foundation is swords, and I transform my body into swords to achieve the supreme swordsmanship. Tianyang was sweating profusely at this moment, but his breath was constantly rising, emitting a fierce sword intent all over his body. I, Tianyang, will transform into a sword today and build my foundation. From then on, I will move forward without any progress. The gods will block the killing of gods, and the demons will block the killing of demons. My way. Build. Tianyang's voice came from the cave entrance and quickly spread to the whole small world. Then, the mountain shook and a loud sword chant came from underground in the eastern golden spirit hall. The temple master rose up from the sky and fled towards the back mountain. At this moment, the back mountain shook violently, as if something had broken through the ground. The disciples were at a loss, but he knew that if they didn't suppress it quickly, the entire small world would collapse, and everyone would fly to ashes. The same scene is happening at the western Turtle Spirit Peak, because beneath it lies the eye of the formation where the trapped immortal sword is located. There is also the 3 Knights Palace in the north, the eye of the formation where the immortal sword is located, and the earth is shaking with the constant sound of the sword. However, the 3 Knights Palace is a bit better because Red Lotus has already conveyed the situation here. Kuei Nyo has told her that although the Zhu Xian sword formation has a strong reaction, it is impossible for these 4 swords to break through the ground. It is a formation arranged by the Heavenly Lord. If a small foundation building cultivator can resonate and cause the formation to collapse, it would be too outrageous. This son has incredible talent. I don't think even if it's a great reincarnation, it may not be like this. Although Kuei Nyo is not worried about the collapse of the formation and the emergence of the 4 swords of the immortal slayer, he can't help but admire Tianyang's cultivation talent. What the senior said is absolutely right, so does Honglian. The Honglian beside her looked at Tianyang in the spirit pool and simply liked him more and more. As the resonance between heaven and earth gradually faded, Tianyang's foundation had already been completed. At this moment, he transformed into a sharp sword, shot out of the cave, and soared into the clouds. Everything in the small world slowly came into view, overlooking the entire inner world. Everything was like a dream, his body cutting through the air, bringing out a long light. The cultivators in the entire inner world watched as the sword flashed across the sky, one by one unable to resist rising into the air and chasing after them to explore the truth. As more and more powerful beings followed behind him, Tianyang quickly made his way back to the mansion. Although he had successfully built the foundation and was full of ambition, compared to these old monsters in the inner earth world, he was no different from ants. As soon as Tianyang landed, he quickly walked to Kuei-nyo's side. Although Kuei-nyo looked like a statue, he couldn't find a second person who could give him a sense of security now. The cultivators who followed Tianyang also slowly landed, estimated to have hundreds of people, and there was a continuous stream of light and shadow escaping from the sky. "I've seen Xian." The cultivators saluted Kuei-nyo's body. Although there were many of them, Kuei-nyo was one of the few celestial beings in this world. Although his body was nirvana and he couldn't move around freely, he was still an invincible presence within the range of the eye of this immortal slaying sword formation. "Master Xian, today the earth shook abnormally in all directions, causing the four swords of Zhu Xian to resonate. Later, we saw this little friend transform into a sword and travel around the world. We were frightened and came to investigate, hoping that Master Xian could help us solve our doubts." A cultivator dressed in a golden robe came forward to express his intention. "It turns out to be Wen Feng from the Golden Spirit Palace. You can talk, Red Lotus doll. Come talk to him." Kuei-nyo seemed too lazy to talk to him and directly pushed the work to Red Lotus. "Yes, senior." After agreeing, Honglian looked at everyone and said, "Fellow Taoists, this is Yishinyang Taoist from the outside world." "Ah. From the outside world. The human race outside." Upon hearing Honglian's words, everyone immediately began to discuss. Some were surprised, some seemed to have guessed something right, but more importantly, they were both surprised and delighted. Because they haven't seen anyone from the outside world for too long, they have been stuck in this small world for over 3,000 years, always wandering around among these tens of thousands of people, getting tired of it. "Everyone, be quiet." Red Lotus raised her hands and gestured for everyone to be quiet. "Let me finish first. Although Tianyang Daoyu comes from the outside world and is also our younger generation, his talent is amazing. In just 4 days, he went from mortal cultivation to successful foundation building, and caused the vibration of heaven and earth. The four swords of the immortals resonated. Therefore, he is highly likely to lead us to break the shackles and return to the big world." "What? Can we go back to the big world? Isn't that true? His cultivation level is so low. Blessed by the heavens, we finally have hope." Upon hearing this news, everyone was even more discussing, some excited, and some skeptical. Red Lotus continued to signal everyone to be quiet. "Everyone knows that if you want to return to the big world, there is currently no other way. Only by breaking through the formation door can you possibly go out. However, everyone is well aware of the strangulation power of the formation gate, which is determined by the cultivator's cultivation level. The higher the cultivator's cultivation level, the greater the strangulation power of the formation gate. Over the years, we have had too many Taoist friends fall in front of the formation gate. The appearance of Tianyang Taoist friends may be our hope for going out. Since that's the case, let him give it a try quickly," someone in the crowd said. "Don't worry. The formation has great power and is based on the four swords of killing immortals, which can easily destroy divine souls. What I meant to Master Xian was to let Tianyang Taoist friends practice at the four major sword eyes for a period of time. The sword energy of the four major sword eyes is fierce, which is very suitable for polishing the foundation of Tianyang Taoist friends. The more stable his foundation is, the greater the hope of breaking through the formation." Honglian explained her plan with Xian. This can be considered a good method. Coincidentally, Tianyang Taoist is practicing sword technique, immortal technique, so going to the sword eye to polish the foundation is indeed very suitable. Everyone heard Honglian's plan and thought it was feasible. Okay, since everyone has no objections, let's go back and wait for the news first. The Lord One of the Golden Spirit Hall and the Gue Xian Taoist friend of the Gue Ling Peak can stay. Hongjun, the contemporary palace master of the Three Knights Palace, naturally wants to stay and discuss Yi Tianyang's entry into the cultivation of the immortal sword eye. As everyone else left, Hongjun took the initiative to introduce herself to Yi Tianyang, saying, Tianyang Daoyu, this is the descendant of Hongjun, the disciple of the Golden Spirit Holy Mother and the contemporary master of the Golden Spirit Hall, Wenfeng. The cultivation of the earth immortal is located in the east of the small world, and the Golden Spirit Hall is responsible for guarding the immortal sword formation eye. Young generation Yi Tianyang pays respects to Lord Wen. Yi Tianyang quickly saluted. Tianyang Taoist friend, don't be too polite. Wenfeng nodded in response. This is Gue Xiandao, a descendant of the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, with a cultivation level as an earth immortal. Gue Lingfeng is located in the west of the small world and is responsible for guarding the eye of the trapped immortal sword formation. Red Lotus pointed to the man who looked like a scholar and introduced him to Yi Tianyang. Young generation, pay respects to Master Gue. Yi Tianyang also stepped forward to salute, but was surprised by Gue Xian's appearance. Although it was a turtle, why did it look like a scholar? This cultivation method is really wonderful. You don't need to be polite, Tianyang Taoist. You are a young genius and your future achievements will surely surpass ours. Just call me Gue Xian. Gue Xian spoke very gently, giving people the feeling of being a neighbor brother. Since we all know each other, let's officially discuss the cultivation of Tianyang Daoyu. Red Lotus smiled and looked at everyone, naturally holding on to the cultivation of Yi Tianyang. After all, she was the only woman present. Due to Kuei-nyo's inability to move, out of respect for him, everyone sat down directly on the stone pier at the entrance of the cave, and then discussed it as if everyone was discussing their child's college entrance exam. This scene actually reminded Yi Tianyang of the scene last year, before the college entrance exam, was not the family like this. I don't know when I can go back, he has been missing for 4 days now. The teacher and parents should be very anxious, right? Chapter 4. Underevaluated 4 Swords of Zhu Xian. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. During the process of Yi Tianyang's longing for his hometown relatives, the 4 big shots had already discussed and Yi Tianyang came to his senses amidst the cries of the Red Lotus. Tianyang Daoist friend, due to the different attributes of the 4 swords of Zhu Xian, we have prepared 4 life-saving talismans for you, namely defense talismans, escape talismans, clear divine talismans, and 1-time stunt talismans. In addition, there are also Pei Ling Dan and some healing pills to assist you in cultivation, which are all included in this ring finger. Red Lotus said and handed the ring to Yi Tianyang. Thank you all, seniors. Yi Tianyang was overjoyed and thought to himself, I'm really lucky. As soon as I arrived in this world, I was treated like a treasure by everyone, and all the good things were thrown at me. Since we are currently in the location of the Zhu Xian sword formation, let's start with the Zhu Xian sword eye. Kuei Xian Sr., thank you. Red Lotus looked at Kuei-nyo. No problem. Kuei-nyo finished speaking, his whole body emitting light, and a fairy element shot out. Suddenly, a door appeared on the stone wall behind the spirit pool. Go. The other 3 nodded at Yi Tianyang, gesturing for him to enter the door. Yi Tianyang walked towards the door of the stone wall, then stepped in and disappeared with a gravitational pull. When Yi Tianyang landed on both feet, he found himself in the underground space, which was very large, like a palace hall. As soon as Yi Tianyang entered, he felt the entire hall filled with countless sharp sword intent. A dark sword was suspended vertically on the middle altar, constantly rotating as if it could be taken away at any time. However, Yi Tianyang knew that there should be a formation lock on the altar. The altar is surrounded by spirit stones, which should be used to provide energy for the formation. When Tianyang was about to approach closer, the figure of Kuei-nyo suddenly appeared next to him. However, this time Kuei-nyo looked different from the outside. The Kuei-nyo outside looked like a statue, while the current Kuei-nyo is vivid and lifelike. Standing in front of you is my primordial spirit. Although my physical body has been nirvanized and I cannot go further, within the range of the eye of the immortal sword formation, my primordial spirit can still leave at will. Kuei-nyo seemed to see Tianyang's confusion. Tianyang was also very shocked in his heart. This was the first time he had seen the Yuan-shan body, and from the appearance, it was no different from the body, but it felt more ethereal and sacred. However, Tianyang quickly realized something was wrong. Kuei-nyo's primordial spirit looked a bit hollow. In theory, shouldn't the primordial spirit of Xian be emitting golden light? The catastrophe back then was too devastating for me. Not only did it nirvanize my body, but it also caused great damage to my spiritual essence. If it weren't for your appearance this time, I would have been mostly asleep. Kuei-nyo finished speaking and looked at the center of the altar, saying, there is a fixed formation around the Zhu Xian sword, but the sharp sword intent emitted by the Zhu Xian sword cannot be completely blocked by the formation. Therefore, the closer you get to the center of the altar, the stronger the sword intent. You can first practice on the periphery, and when you adapt, you can slowly try to approach the center. According to your own ability to bear it, do not blindly fast forward, otherwise it is not impossible for your body in death to disappear. Kuei-nyo said that the entire primordial spirit disappeared. Tianyang followed Kuei-nyo's instructions and slowly walked forward. With each step, he could clearly feel a stronger sword intent. When he took 7 steps, he felt intense pain all over his body, as if thousands of steel needles had penetrated his body. Tianyang quickly activated the Zhu Tian sword technique, and all the pain disappeared in an instant, replaced by a sense of comfort. Indeed, it is an excellent place for cultivation. Tianyang continued to move forward while practicing his martial arts. After absorbing and refining the sharp sword spirit, he could clearly feel that his cultivation was improving and his understanding of swordsmanship was becoming more profound. The foundation of sword form in the elixir field also became more brilliant. When Tianyang took the 15th step, the pain came again. Tianyang knew that taking one more step would be his limit, and this place should be the suitable place for him to practice. Therefore, after taking 16 steps, he sat down and used the heaven-slaying sword technique to continuously absorb and refine these sword meanings. Not long after, a vortex of sword intent had formed around Tianyang, with countless sword intentions constantly pouring into his body, as if all these sword intentions had become nourishment for Tianyang. However, upon closer inspection, it was evident that Tianyang was already sweating profusely, indicating that he had to endure these sword intentions not easily. Half a day later, when Tianyang stood up again, the sword-shaped foundation inside his body had already doubled in size. Refining Qi on the 2nd level. It's really not easy. Only Tianyang knew how intense the pain caused by these sword intentions was. After tidying up his mood, Tianyang continued to move forward. Even though these sword intentions penetrated his body, they seemed to not cause any harm to him. So Tianyang kept moving forward. When he reached 20.9 steps, he felt something was wrong. In theory, the pain caused by the sword intentions would be stronger. Why didn't he feel anything at all? Quickly, this feeling made him a little uneasy. Before he could even think about it, Tianyang spurted out a mouthful of blood and then knelt forward, as if about to explode, in excruciating pain. Tianyang knew that it was necessary to stay awake at this moment. He sat up with a strong support and worked hard to execute the heaven-slaying sword technique. At that moment, he realized that a storm of sword intent had gathered inside his body at some point, attacking the Daoji small sword in his elixir field, as if it was about to devour the small sword, and then he himself seized his elixir field. It's said that killing immortals with the sword is a natural act, so there's no need to exaggerate it. I just absorbed some of your sword intent, and you're going to devour me, which is too stingy, right? Tianyang had already regretted it a bit, regretting that he shouldn't have walked so fast, but this was the end of the matter, and regret was of no use. He could only work hard to resist this sword-intent storm. At this moment, Daoji Xiaojian in the Dantian constantly competed with the sword-intention storm, resisting it outside the Dantian. However, no matter what, he could not force this storm out of his body. However, every impact from both sides brought intense pain to Tianyang, because it was his body after all. Tianyang tried his best to wrap his body's energy around the sword-like storm, trying to minimize the damage, but he also knew that this was not a long-term solution. Once his energy was depleted, he would still be waiting for death. We can't continue like this, we must come up with a solution as soon as possible. The internal struggle continued, although each confrontation made him very painful, in the end he also had a temper. He practiced swordsmanship and built a sword-shaped foundation himself, but was extremely frustrated by the external sword intent. Tianyang felt very frustrated, and if possible, he even wanted to rush forward and bite it. Yeah. I'm really stupid. Why do I always think of forcing it out of my body? Since it wants to devour me, why can't I devour it? Tianyang suddenly had a crazy idea in his mind. Do whatever you want, it's better than waiting to die. Since I am ready to go all out, Tianyang will no longer retain it. He will mobilize all his energy to continuously compress the sword storm, attempting to compress its volume smaller than the Daoji sword and then devour it. The elemental strength of the body constantly converges, and the volume of sword-intense storm also decreases. Under the deadly playing style of Tianyang, sword-intense storm seems to feel fear and become restless. However, Tianyang's elemental strength of the body tightly guards and wraps them all, and they have no choice but to be constantly compressed. Tianyang became excited, and the pleasure of revenge surged in his heart. Finally, there's no need to hold back anymore, and then the compression becomes even more intense according to Tianyang's plan. When the volume of sword-intention storm was compressed to be smaller than that of Daoji's small sword, he let Daoji's small sword devour it. However, as he watched the sword-intention storm keep shrinking, he suddenly changed this plan. What better way to relieve hatred than crushing them? Continue to crush them, crushing them into nothingness. Tianyang continued to compress, but when the sword-intense storm was crushed like a golden bean, he suddenly stopped resisting. Tianyang used his divine sense to examine, but found that the golden bean suddenly wanted to burst out of his body. So it's fake death. Humph, want to run. How could Tianyang let it run away at this moment? Energy clusters the size of gold beans were darting around in his body, and Tianyang was like a cat catching a mouse. Suddenly, Jin-do changed direction and headed towards his head. Tianyang quickly used his elemental strength to stop him, but it was too late. Jin-do rushed into his head and headed straight towards his left eye, attempting to escape from his left eye. Tianyang never allows such a thing to happen. If it breaks through his left eye, won't he lose one eye in the future? He immediately mobilized all his elemental strength to seal his left eye. For a moment, Tianyang's left eye was in excruciating pain, as if it was about to explode. Seal me. Tianyang tried his best to seal it, preventing his left eye from bursting. After a long time, when all the pain disappeared, Tianyang was almost on the verge of collapse. I was really careless this time. Tianyang slowly got up from the ground, took out a few pills to restore his vitality, and swallowed them. But when he opened his eyes and looked at the center of the altar, the scenery before him was completely different. He could actually see the layers of prohibitions on the Xian sword. What's going on? I haven't even refined the Xian sword, how can I see through all its prohibitions? He quickly rubbed his eyes, but when he covered his left eye, the prohibitions he saw disappeared. Is it because of the left eye? He quickly examined his left eye with his divine sense. Sword pupil. Tianyang couldn't believe it. He turned his left eye into a sword pupil because of the combination of his left eye and the energy of the golden beam. If it weren't for Tianyang practicing the heaven-slaying sword technique, he wouldn't have known about the existence of sword eyes. It should be noted that none of them can awaken sword eyes, and they can only awaken sword eyes when they reach the sage realm. According to the information on the cultivation method, those who awaken the sword eyes not only have the ability to recognize the heart and see emptiness, but also possess divine powers that can kill invisibly. This is really a blessing in disguise. Tianyang was overjoyed when he suddenly gained such a great help. When he looked at the Xian sword again with his sword pupils, all 108 prohibitions of the Xian sword appeared in his sight, especially the 100 prohibitions at the back, which were completely natural and perfect. And the first 8 prohibitions seemed to have been artificially refined. When Tianyang tried to use his sword pupils to examine the outermost layer of prohibition, suddenly a character image appeared in front of him. Tianyang suddenly felt a feeling of kneeling down to worship in his heart. As a destined descendant, I am the Lingbao Heavenly Lord. When you can communicate about the prohibition of the Xian sword, it indicates that your swordsmanship has extremely high intelligence and unlimited future. When the master received the Xian 4 swords from the demon lord, he rewarded me with them. However, my intelligence is limited and my strength is not good. I can only refine the first 8 prohibitions, but even so, I once used this to fight against the 4 saints with the Xian 4 swords. If someone can refine this sword to more than half of its prohibition, block and kill the gods, the universe will be invincible. Today's future generations will have fate, and I will erase the imprints of the 8 prohibitions in front of me. You can easily refine them, hoping that one day you can benefit this universe and bless all beings. As soon as Lingbao Tianzuan finished speaking, the void shadow disappeared, and then he saw the Dao halo on the outer 8 prohibitions of the Xian sword slowly disappearing. Tianyang knew that the opportunity was not to be lost, so he quickly used his divine sense to communicate the prohibition. Soon, he easily refined the first 8 prohibitions, and then the immortal slaying sword seemed to become restless, as if asking why you ants refined me. Tianyang quickly retreated and used his sword pupils to resist the raging sword intent. The sword pupils were originally made of the sword intent, so there was no problem resisting it. It seems that the power of these Xian 4 swords is still underestimated in mythology. According to the leader of the Tongtian sect, refining more than half of the prohibitions can make the universe invincible. How powerful would it be if all of them were refined? Tianyang thought it terrifying, but at least he has already refined the 8 prohibitions on the front, and there will eventually be a chance to refine them layer by layer in the future. Although Tianyang is currently unable to use the Xian sword, due to the refinement of the first 8 prohibitions, he already knows all the information about the Xian sword. Xian sword, along with the other 3 swords, was born in chaos. Xian sword is extremely sharp and skilled in killing. Any target locked by the Xian sword will be killed even if it is across the realm. I'll be obedient, this is what must be executed even if it's far away. Tianyang was shocked and extremely excited, thinking that this great killing weapon might become his weapon in the future, and his passion was immense in an instant. Chapter 5. Abundant Receipt of Goods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pack up his mood. Tianyang is ready to leave here because the sword energy here is not very helpful to him anymore. Unless the protective array is opened, it is something that he cannot even think about now. If it were not for the protective array, he probably wouldn't know how he would die. Not bad. As soon as Tianyang walked out, he heard the voice of Kuei Nyo, and then his spirit also appeared in front of him. Senior. Tianyang was surprised, as if everything here was being seen by Kuei Xian. Otherwise, how could he appear so punctual? Follow me. Then the 2 figures disappeared simultaneously, reappearing at the entrance of the cave. When Tianyang saw the Red Lotus and their companions again, he felt that they no longer had such strong influence. Looking at them with his sword pupils, their cultivation was clearly visible, all at the peak of the earth immortals. To save time, let's go to my place next. At this moment, Wen Feng, the head of the Golden Spirit Hall, spoke up first. Oh, I don't care. Xian shrugged. Let's go together too. Red Lotus always had a smile on her face. Then let's go. Wen Feng finished speaking and disappeared with Tianyang in an instant. Then, Honglian and Xian also fled towards the east. The Golden Spirit Holy Mother is said to be the first female disciple under the head of the Tongtian sect, who almost stepped into the presence of a saint. Therefore, the Golden Spirit Holy Mother is like a deity in the hearts of her disciples. That's also why they want to establish the Golden Spirit Temple in the small world, to commemorate their master, the Golden Spirit Holy Mother. The Golden Spirit Hall has a magnificent aura, and its immortal aura is pressing. It is said that only the Three Knights Palace can compete with one in the entire small world, but the few people did not stop at the palace, but went straight to the back mountain and then came straight to a huge cave. Master. Wen Feng bowed to the cave entrance and saw an old man's phantom immediately appear. Another primordial spirit body. It's probably someone of the same level as Xian, Tianyang thought to himself. You bring him in, the others stay. Tianyang followed Wen Feng into the cave, only to find that there was also a spiritual pool in the cave. Looking at the rich spiritual energy in the pool, Tianyang couldn't help but want to continue practicing. You know, he hasn't practiced well since he successfully built the foundation. If you can come out of the sword eye alive, you can practice in the spirit pool for 7 days. The elder Yuanshan seemed to see through Tianyang's thoughts. Tianyang Daoyu, this is my martial uncle Qingyu Immortal, Wen Feng introduced to Tianyang. Thank you, senior. I am Tianyang. Let's go. Qingyu Immortal said and pointed at the stone wall. The immortal Yuan shot out, and then the same portal appeared. The three of them entered the portal together and soon arrived at an underground hall. The hall was about the same size as the one where the Zhu Xian sword was located, but it was in a state of disrepair and filled with a sense of destruction everywhere. In the center of the hall was also an altar, and the sword on the altar was actually gray, rotating vertically and emitting a sense of destruction through the formation. Is this the sword of slaying immortals? Tianyang was very surprised in his heart. According to his original understanding of the sword of slaying immortals, it should be a sword that is good at killing, but he only realized he was wrong when he came in. Where is this just killing? This is destruction. You should know that under normal circumstances, killing is only aimed at living beings, but this destructive aura is simply about destroying all life, even the cycle of soul. Be careful to understand and act within your abilities. The process of cultivation depends on yourself. Qingyu said and left. After Wen Feng said, be careful, he immediately disappeared because he didn't want to stay in this place for a moment. The atmosphere of destruction made him very uncomfortable. Tianyang was also very helpless. At this moment, he was like a little white mouse, only able to take one step and watch another. He walked forward step by step, and with each step, his destructive aura grew stronger, making him feel like he might be destroyed the next moment. What about destruction? Isn't it also the breath released by a sword? Since I am practicing the heaven-slaying sword technique, how can I be afraid of your destruction? Tianyang opened his sword pupils and allowed them to absorb the destructive sword intent. His sword pupils needed to grow, so he needed to absorb more powerful sword intent. But he behaved well this time, stopping every step and then starting to refine. The sword pupils absorbed the sword energy from the sword energy, and the remaining vitality was then transferred to the Dantian sword as he continued to refine more destructive sword intent. The light of his sword pupils also changed from golden to slightly grayish golden, while Dantian's small sword continued to grow stronger and its momentum became even more sharp. With the help of Sword Tong in his previous experience, Yi Tianyang's breakthrough was even easier this time. Not only did he quickly reach the third level of foundation building, but he also absorbed all the destructive sword intent outside the formation. It seems a bit unsatisfied. Yi Tianyang seemed a bit dissatisfied. I don't know if there will be any images left by the leader of the Tongtian sect on this sword. Yi Tianyang was very excited. You should know that the leader of the Tongtian sect is likely to help him refine several layers of prohibition. When the light of the sword pupils shone towards the slaying immortal sword, the 108 prohibitions on the sword body were indeed revealed, and at the same time, the phantom of the Tongtian sect leader appeared. Unfortunately, this time the Tongtian sect leader only refined 5 layers of prohibitions, which somewhat disappointed him. Fortunately, after mastering these 5 layers of prohibitions, he obtained a divine skill. The Great Destruction Technique. When Yi Tianyang saw the name of this divine power clearly, his chin was almost startled. The Great Destruction Technique, a master of cultivation, can ignore space and rules, and easily destroy a world. It's so terrifying. Upon seeing these messages, Yi Tianyang secretly felt relieved. Fortunately, this thing fell into his own hands. If it were to fall into the hands of a ruthless person, how could it be? But fortunately, I also have even greater respect for the leader of the Tongtian sect. You should know that in the Great War of the Gods, he would rather fight against 4 saints alone than practice the Great Destruction Technique. This shows that the leader of the Tongtian sect is not a legendary villain, but a person with a grand plan. However, Yi Tianyang's sword pupils absorbed the destructive intent of the sword and also carried a destructive aura. In the future, if anyone is hit by his divine power during enemy battles, it will probably be difficult to recover. Let's go, there's no more sword intent here. It's time to go to the next place. Yi Tianyang was about to leave, and Qingyu appeared in time, then took him out of the sword eye. I've come out, it looks like I've made a lot of progress. It's time to go to my Sanshao Palace next. As soon as Honglian saw Yi Tianyang come out, she welcomed him and grabbed his hand before leaving. So what? Yi Tianyang originally wanted to say that he would practice here for 7 days, but he was held in hand by Honglian and left. Turtle Xian looked at him with a bitter smile, and then followed suit. The Northern Three Knights Palace is home to disciples of the Three Knights Empress. Legend has it that the combination of the Three Knights Empress is even more powerful than that of the Golden Spirit Holy Mother, and even the saints must yield 3 points. This is also why the Three Knights Palace has always been incompatible with the Golden Spirit Palace, because they have always believed that the Three Knights Empress should be the first female disciple under the head of the Tongtian sect. Even the architecture of the Three Knights Palace seems to be trying to lower the Golden Spirit Palace and deliberately build it higher than the Golden Spirit Palace. Honglian was not in a hurry to take Yi Tianyang directly to the Zhu Xian Sword Eye, but instead took him on a slow tour of the palace, giving Yi Tianyang the feeling that it was to show off his family background to his son. Law. Make him breathe quickly and tense throughout. If Honglian is an ordinary woman, it's okay. You should know that she is the pinnacle of the earth immortal. If you want to eat a foundation building cultivator, it's not like playing. Fortunately, Yi Tianyang kept his true intention and didn't dare to think too much, so he persisted until the entire palace was finished. Tianyang Daoist friend, do you want to go to the cave where I cultivate and sit down? Let's exchange ideas and discuss the Tao together. Seeing that Yi Tianyang remained indifferent, Honglian simply showcased her cards. How does this make sense, Senior Honglian? Let's go to the Zhu Xian Sword Eye as soon as possible, otherwise Senior Gui Xian should be in a hurry. Yi Tianyang was sweating profusely when he heard Red Lian's words. This stinky turtle is really, why do you want to follow? Honglian thought of Gui Xian and got angry. It would be great if he didn't come along. Helplessly, Honglian had to bring Yi Tianyang to the back mountain. The back mountain of Sanshao Palace was also guarded by a celestial being named Zixia, whose body had been transformed into a nirvana. Moreover, from her elemental body, Zixia was also an incredibly beautiful fairy. Due to the influence of the Red Lotus, Tianyang only wanted to quickly end his cultivation here. As soon as he entered the Array Eye Hall where the Zhu Xian sword was located, he immediately let the sword eye start absorbing the sword intent. However, before long, a problem occurred, and he unexpectedly found that he had lost contact with the sword eye. Although the sword eye was still on him, he could not perceive it, as if someone had taken out his left eye out of thin air. Tianyang panicked instantly. He had to endure a lot of hardships to obtain this sword pupil, and it would be very helpful for his future growth. If it disappeared for no reason, he would really cry to death. There's a problem with the sword energy here. Tianyang quickly realized. Under his careful perception, he found that the sword intent here had a cutting attribute, not only able to cut through physical objects, but also cut through nothingness. Just now, he was cut off from his sword pupils by these sword intentions. Tianyang kept trying to communicate with Jian Tong, but no matter what, there was no response. Cutting. Since you want to cut, let's see who's faster. Before you cut, I'll swallow you. Although these sword intentions have cutting attributes, their attack power is not high. He plans to directly have Dantian Shaojian go to the sword pupil to devour these sword intentions, but the premise is to be fast. Tianyang controlled the small sword to reach the connection between the sword pupil and the body, and found that there were several barriers formed by the sword intent. He made a quick decision and directly let the small sword devour these sword intentions. In just an instant, he regained control of the sword pupil and immediately let the sword pupil refine the remaining cutting sword intent. With this method, Tianyang was no longer afraid of these cutting sword intentions. It was his turn to harvest. The sword pupils continuously absorbed these sword intentions, and after refining, they were directly absorbed by Dantian Shaojian. In just over a day, he swept away the cutting sword intentions in the main hall, and his cultivation naturally arrived at the third floor of the foundation building. No wonder it's called the Immortal Sword. With this cutting ability, even the divine soul can be cut open, which is amazing. Tianyang opened his sword pupils and found that their eyes also had a cutting intent, feeling very satisfied in his heart. Unfortunately, this Zhu Xian sword was only refined by the heavenly sect master with 2 levels of prohibition. However, having 2 levels is better than not having 1. If it were for him, he wouldn't have known that monkey year and horse month would be qualified to refine it. Organize your mood and prepare to go to the next stop. At the moment when the purple cloud fairy appeared, Tianyang couldn't help but take a second look, thinking to himself, could this be the legendary purple cloud fairy? As soon as they came out, Gui Xian was already waiting outside. Tianyang saw that Gui Xian quickly walked up to him and said, Master Gui has been waiting for a long time, let's go. Gui Xian was taken aback for a moment, and immediately understood his meaning. He fled to the west with Tianyang, leaving Red Lotus pouting and staying in place. Before long, they had reached the western Turtle Spirit Peak. Thank you for your help, Senior. Upon landing, Tianyang thanked Gui Xian for his recent rescue actions. Why don't you agree, kid? Honglian is a famous beautiful fairy, and many people are reluctant to ask for her. Besides, as long as you double cultivate with her, your cultivation will quickly improve by a few levels. Gui Xian smiled and looked at Tianyang. Senior, you're joking. The Red Lotus Fairy is the senior immortal I look up to. How dare I have any ulterior motives? Tianyang was also speechless in his heart. Why is this Gui Xian a bit old and not serious? Gui Xian smiled without saying anything, and then took him to the summit. It's strange to say that no one can be seen in the entire Turtle Spirit Peak. To be precise, not even a turtle can be seen. Back in the day, the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit was a quasi-saint with great power. Why are there so few disciples in our sect? But he was just curious and didn't dare to ask more questions. At the peak, there is a temple dedicated to the Holy Mother of the Turtle Spirit. There is an old man cleaning the temple. But when Tianyang looked at the old man with his sword pupils, he was surprised to find that he was actually a heavenly immortal cultivation. Yes, he was a heavenly immortal, and he was a complete heavenly immortal without the kind of body that had been transformed into nirvana. Here we go, okay. Okay. I watched as I smiled and said 2 good words in a row, then put the broom aside and said, "Come with me." On the way, Xian introduced the viewer. Originally, the old man's name was Hong, a descendant of the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit and the grandfather of Xian. Due to the turtle tribe's expertise in defense, Hong was not reincarnated during the catastrophe and was the only complete immortal in the entire small world to survive. However, injuries were still inevitable, so Hong has not fully recovered to this day. The 3 of them arrived inside Turtle Spirit Peak, and the same hall appeared in front of them. However, after entering, Tianyang did not feel anything special about these sword meanings. "Hello, you have a good understanding. We're out." Hong said a long sentence before taking Xian out. After Hong and the others left, Tianyang slowly walked towards the middle area and opened his sword pupils to slowly absorb the sword intent. However, the next second he felt something was wrong. After these sword intentions entered his sword pupils, he began to crazily devour the sword intent inside his body. I see, the trapped immortal sword possesses the power of devouring. It's okay not to attack, as long as he attacks, he will start devouring. Tianyang suddenly understood. A treasure that can devour the opponent's attack is an unexpected big move. Since that's the case, let's see whose devouring is stronger. If he encounters someone holding the trapped immortal sword head-on, Tianyang must have run as far as he can, but it's just the sword intent overflowing from the formation. He still has confidence that he can be subdued. "Come on, baby." Tianyang urged the sword pupils with all his might, devouring them and quickly refining them, without giving them any chance to resist. In just over a day, the sword intent in the main hall was swallowed up by Tianyang, and the cultivation level also reached the 5th level of building the foundation. But when Sword Tong communicated with the image of the heavenly sect leader, he surprisingly found that he had only refined 1 layer of prohibition, and he also reminded at the end of the image that this sword has extremely strong devouring properties, and is even easy to kill the master. Even if it is refined by a saint, it may be backfired. So he refined a layer and gave up. When Tianyang accepted the first layer of prohibition with lingering fear, he completely collapsed because accepting this layer of prohibition was even more difficult than all the other 3 swords. Fortunately, Senior Tong Tian only refined 1 layer of prohibition. If he refined 2 or more layers, he wouldn't be able to accept this great gift today. Tianyang turned back to look at the sinking immortal sword and recalled the sword formation cultivation in the past few days, which had been extremely dangerous several times. Fortunately, in the end, all the dangers were saved. Fortunately, I have gained a lot and returned with a full load. Chapter 6. Returning to the Big World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hong arrived at Tianyang's side on time and brought him to the edge of the spirit pool where Lingfeng was located. Since Qingyu promised you to practice in the spirit pool for 7 days, then I can't be stingy. You can practice here for 7 days. Thank you, Senior. Tianyang was overjoyed in his heart. Go. Hong said and left with a smile. When Hong completely left his sight, Tianyang went straight into the spirit pool and began his crazy cultivation. There were only 7 days left, so he had to hurry up. If he returned to the outside world, there would be no such good cultivation conditions. The spiritual energy surged into Tianyang's body like a raging beast, while the light of the small sword in the elixir field grew stronger. As a sword cultivator, as long as one's mind was focused and the sword heart was clear, there was no obstacle to cultivation, let alone in the spirit pool with extremely rich spiritual energy. But now his feeling of cultivation is very different from before. He can clearly feel that the spiritual liquid in this pool also has a devouring attribute. It seems that the existence of this spirit pool is closely related to the trapped immortal sword. It shouldn't be as simple as using it for ordinary people to cultivate. Although I thought so in my heart, the cultivation still continued. Since Guihong asked him to cultivate here for 7 days, there shouldn't be any problem. The time for cultivation always passes quickly, and the 7 days are coming soon. In these 7 days, Yi Tianyang's cultivation broke through 2 barriers and arrived at the 7th floor of the foundation building. However, as his level rises and his breakthrough time lengthens, he is no longer able to advance quickly like in the gas refining stage. But he didn't know that breaking through 2 small realms in 7 days was already quite impressive in the entire small world. After Yi Tianyang practiced, Xian waited for him at the temple. Seeing Yi Tianyang ascend to 2 small realms, he was also happy for him. Then he told him about the message from Qingyu Immortal to send him to practice. Do you need me to take you there? Xian looked at Yi Tianyang. Thank you for your kindness, senior. I'll just go by myself. I've been very tired of you lately. Yi Tianyang felt really sorry for it. During this time, Xian followed me all the way, almost turning the whole small world around. Okay, be careful yourself. Although most of the small world knows about Yi Tianyang's situation, it is still a kind reminder to him, because some isolated cultivators may not know the truth. Farewell, young master. Guishwani Tianyang bid farewell and fled to the east. Although he had only recently built a foundation, his speed was still much faster than that of a normal foundation building cultivator, even comparable to that of a low-level golden core cultivator, as he could transform swords with his own body. When Yi Tianyang arrived at the Golden Spirit Hall, Wen Feng took him directly to the spirit pool, but the Qingyu Immortal did not appear. However, it didn't matter to him. He came to practice, someone could take him to practice. Without any accidents, Yi Tianyang also sensed the destructive intent of the slaying immortal sword in this spiritual pool, but it was also extremely weak. Ordinary people might not have noticed it, but he had sword pupils, and all illusions could not be hidden in his eyes, let alone the intention of his main swordsmanship. On the 4th day of cultivation, Yi Tianyang successfully broke through the 8th floor of the foundation. At the end of the 7th day, his cultivation reached the 8th floor of the foundation building. Unfortunately, I didn't break through to the 9th level of building foundation. It seems that this cultivation has become increasingly difficult as we progress further. After completing his cultivation, Yi Tianyang still did not see the Qingyu Immortal. He decided to go directly to the Golden Spirit Hall to bid farewell to Wen Feng. Well, not bad. The 8th floor foundation has been successfully built. You can go back to Xian's place first. Xian will arrange everything properly, and we will gather at Xian cave in a few days. Wen Feng is still very satisfied with Yi Tianyang's progress. Farewell to the younger generation. Yi Tianyang bid farewell to Wen Feng and then fled to Xian cave. I'm back. As soon as Yi Tianyang landed, the voice of Nyo could be heard in his ear. Yes, senior. Not bad, you go to the spirit pool to continue your cultivation and strive to achieve the completion of foundation building as soon as possible. Some people can't wait any longer. Take this thing, your responsibility is heavy next. As Nyo finished speaking, a jade box appeared out of thin air in Yi Tianyang's hand, and inside the jade box lay a fairy grass. Senior, this is the refining god grass, which will help you cultivate your spiritual consciousness. I need to use one plant every 100 years, otherwise my primordial spirit will become weaker and weaker. This is the last plant. Nyo had no choice but to rely on the refining god grass to survive. He had enough of these days, so he might as well fulfill this younger generation. Senior, this is too precious, never to be used. Tianyang said this with sincerity. Although he had not known Kuei Nyo long ago, he was the first person he met in this small world, passed down his martial arts, and the first person to protect him. He did not want to use someone else's life-saving spiritual herb for cultivation. No problem, it's just a plant of refining spirit grass. It's just another 100 years of being weak. If you successfully break through the formation door, I still have a glimmer of hope. Are you serious, Senior? Tianyang was overjoyed upon hearing this. I don't need to deceive you, take it. Kuei Nyo said and stopped speaking. Thank you for your great kindness, Senior. Tianyang bowed deeply to Kuei Nyo. Upon returning to the spirit pool, Tianyang took down a leaf of the refining god grass and began to sit down to practice. However, after a moment, he felt a scorching sensation in the sea of consciousness, and then the sea of consciousness began to surge. Then, he felt his perception range of divine consciousness skyrocket from 10 miles to 20 miles, and his cultivation speed was also much faster than before. Tianyang once again took out the refining god grass and directly swallowed the entire plant. Suddenly, the raging heat flow filled the sea of consciousness again, more than 10 times stronger than before. Immediately, his sea of consciousness surged wildly, like a lake filled with a tsunami, instantly turning into a vast ocean. 30 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles. When his spiritual consciousness covered 150 miles, the sea of consciousness stopped growing. What surprised him even more was that his cultivation speed was several times faster than before. In less than half a day, he broke through the 9th level of foundation building, and after another day, he directly reached the completion of foundation building. The foundation has been completed. At this point, no matter how much Tianyang cultivates, he cannot absorb any spiritual energy because he has reached the limit of perfection. When Tianyang was about to examine the pill-forming chapter of the Zhu Tian sword technique, Kuei Nyo's voice came from outside. You must not take pills. Upon hearing this, Tianyang could only come out. When he arrived at the cave entrance, many cultivators had already gathered here, but most of them were cultivators in the realm of transforming gods, and there were also some earthly immortals. This made Tianyang feel a bit speechless, as the world was filled with old monsters who were both gods and earthly immortals, all gathered here waiting for him. At this moment, a earthly immortal walked out. Tianyang Daoist friend, congratulations on completing your foundation. You are only one step away from becoming the golden elixir. However, you must not form elixirs in this small world, because the power of the formation gate corresponds to the level of the cultivator. The higher the cultivation level, the greater the power of strangulation. The more deeply rooted the cultivator, the greater the probability of success in breaking through the formation. When you build the foundation, you imprint the illusion of heaven and earth, and practice in the 4 major sword eyes. I believe that your foundation in this level is extremely deep, so when you form elixirs the front should be the best time to break through the formation. I see. At this moment, Tianyang finally understood why these people had gathered here. Emotions knew that I would build a successful foundation in the next few days. Take this thing. Kuei Nyo's voice fell into Tianyang's ear, and then a dark divine sword suspended before his eyes. This sword is called Gi, which was accidentally obtained by the Heavenly Lord back then. Although it is not an innate spiritual treasure, it is also the best among the acquired spiritual treasures. You can't practice swordsmanship without a sword, and this divine sword is for you. Kuei Nyo's voice came again. Thank you for giving him the sword, Senior. Tianyang felt a warm surge in his heart, and this Kuei Nyo Senior was really kind to him. Tianyang offered his sword and stood on it, soaring straight into the clouds. This is the legendary flying of the imperial sword. I didn't expect my dreams to shine into reality. If I were to return to the outside world, it would definitely be unbelievable. Tianyang swam in the air, feeling unbelievable. Suddenly, he saw countless cultivators flying towards him from all directions, and in an instant, they came to him. Tianyang Daoyu led by Wenfeng and Honglian. Senior. Let's go say goodbye to Senior Kue Xian. Farewell. Will Senior Kue Xian not go? Tianyang was puzzled. Of course not, the formation gate is located in the center of the small world, and the sword energy there is fierce. Senior Kue Xian is not suitable to go there. Red Lotus came to Tianyang's side. In the center of the small world. Isn't it above the eye of the immortal sword? I fell from there back then. Tianyang looked at Honglian. Pushi. Red Lotus couldn't help but laugh. Silly little brother, that's not the gate to go out. You were just randomly teleported there by the external teleportation array. Oh. Tianyang felt a bit foolish. If the formation gate were there, they probably would have left long ago because he didn't feel any sword intent when he came down. Not long after, a group of people arrived at Kue Xian cave in a grand and mighty manner. Tianyang approached Kue Nyo and bowed deeply. Take care, senior. Go ahead. Be careful. Kue Nyo only explained one sentence before stopping speaking. Let's go. Wenfeng spoke, and everyone rushed into the air, fleeing towards the center of the small world. There is a square sword castle in the center of the small world. It is said that if you can enter the center of the sword castle, you can take the teleportation array to leave the small world. However, no one has succeeded so far, and there are even countless players who break through the array here who die and disappear. Tianyang and his group arrived in front of the castle in a grand manner, feeling that if so many people were to take action together, with just one divine skill each person could easily destroy the sword castle. But when they actually arrived at the door, no one dared to enter. Friend Tianyang, please. Everyone saluted Tianyang in unison. Okay, I'll do my best to do it. Tianyang turned around and entered the sword castle, then slowly walked forward. Just as he took a dozen or so steps, Tianyang felt as if he was being targeted by something, and the more he walked inside, the more obvious this feeling became. Suddenly, a sword approached him, and he quickly turned around to avoid it, but when he looked again, he couldn't see anyone. It turned out to be a sword spirit. When Tianyang opened his sword pupils, his black hand attacking him revealed itself as a sword spirit. Sword spirit is the spirit within the sword. Usually only spiritual treasures can give birth to spiritual intelligence. In the outside world, sword spirits cannot launch attacks alone, but this is a sword castle, where sword intentions are everywhere. Sword spirits can manipulate these sword intentions to launch attacks at will. Tianyang offered the Gi sword to attack the sword spirit, but each time the sword spirit could manipulate the sword intent of the same level to fight, and the two sides could not fight for a long time. Jianling seemed to know that Tianyang couldn't do anything about it, but not taking him down for so long also made Jianling feel embarrassed. Therefore, Jianling no longer engaged in long-range confrontation, but instead controlled a group of sword intentions to entangle Gi's sword, and the main body came directly to Tianyang, preparing for a fatal blow. After all, it's just a sword spirit. What's waiting for is you to get close. Tianyang grinned and his sword pupils shot out a destructive sword intent, hitting the body of the sword spirit. Immediately, I saw the sword spirit constantly struggling in the air, gradually being eroded by the destructive sword intent. You slowly destroy here. I'll take one step first. Tianyang continued to walk forward and then saw a sword-shaped gate. He looked at it and saw that there was no other way, so he could only walk in. When Tianyang crossed the sword gate, he found himself on the back mountain of Jiangnan Medical College, which was right next to the sinkhole. Is it so easy to come out? Isn't it too easy? Tianyang. Suddenly, a voice came out. Ning Shui. Tianyang looked up and saw Ning Shui running towards him. Tianyang, I finally found you. I thought you were dead, Ning Shui tightly hugged Tianyang. I'm fine, I'm fine. Tianyang was puzzled and thought to himself, I've only had dinner with you once before. Why did you still hug me? It seems that the reason why I was killed by Zhao Liang and others was because of the meal the night before. Tianyang, let's go back. Ning Shui hugged Tianyang's arm like a little woman. Well, okay. Tianyang was about to take a step forward. Suddenly, a dagger hit his waist and was then pinched by Tianyang's big hand. Tianyang, what are you doing? It hurts. Ning Shui burst into tears. Pain, Zhao Liang, do you still know it hurts? It's not enough to harm me once, do you want to do it again? Today, I'll also let you taste the feeling of falling into the abyss. After saying this, Tianyang threw Zhao Liang out of the pit with a big hand. With Zhao Liang's disappearance, Tianyang appeared in the Sword Castle Hall. So it was just a fantasy formation. Seeing the array door in the center of the hall, Tianyang slowly walked over to inspect it, feeling a little excited. Perhaps he could go home through this array door. But just as he was only one zhang away from the formation gate, he suddenly shot countless sword energies from all directions, as if he could instantly shoot Tianyang into nothingness. If the third level is all about sword energy, it's just for me to replenish my body. Coincidentally, I haven't had enough of the 4 major sword eyes yet. Sword pupils, I'll leave it to you. Tianyang's sword pupils let go, and in an instant, all the sword energy shot in was absorbed by the sword pupils, wave after wave. Don't be too satisfied, but unfortunately, the elemental power in these sword energies has reached saturation, so it can only be wasted in vain. When the sword pupil absorbs and refines all the sword intent in the sword energy, the sword pupil also changes from gray to black. Great, sword eyes have been upgraded. Now, the power of sword eyes alone should be comparable to gold pills. Tianyang was overjoyed in his heart. Great, Tianyang Taoist friend, you have finally succeeded. We did not see you wrong. Suddenly, the voice of Wen Feng came, and the entire hall was densely packed with cultivators. We can finally go out now. Thank you very much, Tianyang Taoist. In the future, your business will be our business in the outside world. Yeah, when it comes to the outside world, we'll support you. All kinds of good words rushed in, but Tianyang didn't take them seriously. Everyone, let's come in groups, with each 100 people forming their own teams. Wen Feng's voice quickly suppressed the noise from the crowd. Wen Feng took out the spirit stone and sent it into the groove around the formation gate. In an instant, the transmission formation roared and shone brightly. The first group of 100 people have already stood on the stage and disappeared together. Tianyang Daoyu, will you join us? Red Lotus walked up to Tianyang. Thank you for your love, senior. I am willing to. Just as Tianyang finished speaking, the crowd suddenly shouted. It's not good, big things are not good. A cultivator from the Earth Immortal Cultivation shouted as he walked up. Xinglong Daoyu, what has made you so anxious? Honglian quickly asked. Red Lotus Taoist friend, I just received a message from my junior brother Gao Hu. The rules of the outside world have changed greatly, and it is no longer the Emperor's realm of the past. The first batch of Taoist friends who were sent out were all torn into nothingness by the rules of the world, and their lives have disappeared. Ah! What should I do? Heaven doesn't bless me. For a moment, people were in a state of panic, heart-wrenching and lung-wrenching. Tianyang Daoyu, you come from the outside world. Can you tell me what's going on in the outside world now? Red Lotus also looked nervous at this moment. The outside world now should be a pure mortal world. Before I came to the small world, I had never seen a cultivator, Tianyang answered truthfully. After listening to Tianyang's words, everyone was greatly disappointed. It should be that the catastrophe of the past completely changed the rules of the outside world. A pure mortal world naturally cannot allow cultivators to enter. When everyone was still anxious, Tianyang stood on the teleportation station. "Tianyang Daoyu, what are you doing?" exclaimed Honglian. "No matter what, I will go back, even if I am in pieces," Tianyang said firmly. With his family outside, he couldn't possibly not go back. Perhaps Tianyang Daoyu can really go back, because he already comes from that world, Wen Feng said at this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me take a step first. If I survive a great disaster, I will definitely come back. If the external rules improve, I will definitely come and pick up you gentlemen to go home." After bidding farewell to the cultivators, Tianyang disappeared. Changsha, Qianshan Lake, one person is slowly swimming towards the shore. "Husband, do you think that person can swim without taking off his clothes?" A woman on the shore looked at Tianyang strangely. Tianyang felt depressed in his heart. "I don't want to swim, but if I can't fly in the sky and scare you to death." Tianyang didn't expect that the exit of the teleportation array would be at the bottom of the lake, but fortunately he didn't feel any pressure from the rules of heaven and earth after coming out, and his cultivation was also intact. The world, I have finally come back. Chapter 7. World Earthquakes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianyang awkwardly landed in front of a group of strange gazes, then quickly ran behind a hidden small tree, making sure no one was watching around. He then activated his spiritual element, and his hair and clothes quickly returned to normal. Sigh. We can only run back. Tianyang had no money in his pocket and no phone, so he had no choice but to run back to school. Fortunately, their school was only a block away from here, and with his current well-built physique, it shouldn't take too long to run back. While jogging along the way, Tianyang noticed that there was something wrong with the pedestrians on the road. Most of them were dressed mainly in black and white, especially when passing by some official units, and even the flag was lowered at half-mast. Tianyang felt that normal running was still too slow, so he simply increased his speed and ran at the speed of a normal person's 100-meter sprint. Although some people occasionally looked at it, they didn't find it too strange. After more than an hour of long-distance running, Tianyang finally arrived at the school gate. At this moment it was about to have lunch, so there were people coming and going at the school gate. Suddenly, a voice called out to him. "Tianyang." A chubby figure rushed towards him. "It's really you. Tianyang, where have you been lately? We've been looking for you everywhere, why haven't we even made a phone call?" De Fu. The person who came was Tianyang's roommate and also his best friend Huang Furong. Tianyang saw that this brother genuinely cared for him, and his heart felt a warmth. "I was almost tricked into going abroad by someone, but fortunately I managed to escape." Tianyang spoke out the words he had already planned. "I see, no wonder we can't find you. Do you know we're all in a hurry? Your parents and sister are all here. My parents are also here. Yes, they are currently renting in Changsha. I am not sure about the specific location, but it should not be far from our school because they will come to the school every other day to inquire about your situation. They also came yesterday afternoon." Huang Furong told him everything about these days. On the third day after his disappearance, the school called the police and notified his family. When Tianyang's parents and sisters received the news of his disappearance, they rushed to Changsha overnight. In the first few days, they cried uncontrollably because according to the police investigation, Tianyang's phone, ID card, and wallet were still in the dormitory. If he had left voluntarily, it was impossible not to bring these things, so the police initially determined that Tianyang may have encountered an accident, but his parents still couldn't accept this result and insisted on searching everywhere every day. It can be said that in the past month, they have traveled all over the streets and alleys of Changsha. After listening to Huang Furong's narration, Tianyang's eyes became sore, and tears almost came down his face. In the days when he disappeared, did he not care about them? Anyway, you just need to come back. Let's go back to the dormitory first, report your parents' safety, and then we'll go eat. I'm sure we haven't had a good meal in the past month. I'll treat you to lunch today, you can make whatever you want. Huang Furong pulled him away. Tianyang hasn't had a meal in the past month because he practiced too quickly and easily completed the task of clearing the valley. However, seeing his good brother's sincere concern, he definitely wants to have this meal. The two of them walked towards the dormitory, and along the way, many people who knew Tianyang came to greet him. Most of them asked him what was going on, where he had gone, and so on. When Huang Furong opened the dormitory door, Tianyang was instantly surrounded by people. Brother Yang, you have finally returned, but you have made me want to die. Brother Yang, why have you disappeared inexplicably for so long? Brother Yang, let me see, have you lost weight? Ha! Brother Yang, why did you become so handsome? Surrounded by no one else, it was his other four roommates. Peng Tao, Li Xiaojie, Lu Min, and Lin Yun. Feeling the pure care of everyone, Tianyang felt a warm current in his heart. Let the brothers worry. Tianyang gave everyone a hug. Tianyang, let's give my uncle and aunt a call first. Your uncle has taken your phone. Huang Furong took out the phone from the drawer and handed it to Tianyang. Tianyang took the phone and entered his father's phone number. Hello. An old voice came from the other end of the phone. At this moment, Tianyang could no longer suppress it, tears streaming down his face. Is this his father's voice? He is only in his 40s, why has his voice become so old? How did he come this month? Hello. Hello. Who are you? Is it Yang Yang? Is it my Yang Yang? Although Tianyang didn't speak, his father still felt his presence on the phone. When Tianyang cried out, he knew that his Yang Yang had returned. Dad! Dad! It's me, I'm Yang Yang, I'm back. I'm back, my Yang Yang is back, it's good to be back, it's good to be back. Shuzhen, come quickly. It's Yang Yang. Child, wait a moment, I'll go find your mother. Tianyang's father burst into tears of joy, holding his phone and quickly ran downstairs to the rental house. At this moment, Tianyang's mother had just picked up a big bag of bread from the bakery downstairs. As she was about to enter the alley, Guangming excitedly rushed over. Shuzhen. Shuzhen. It's Yang Yang, and Yang Yang is back. Guangming quickly came to the child's mother, and then turned the phone interface to her. Suddenly, Qin Shuzhen was stunned. It had been almost a month now, and she wished to turn the world upside down. She only wanted to know where his Yang was. In the past month, she hasn't had a good night's sleep. As soon as she closes her eyes, her mind is filled with her Yang. In the past month, she has traveled all over the streets and alleys of Changsha, just to find some trace of her Yang Yang. Now, the child she had been thinking about day and night has finally returned. Mom! I'm Yang Yang. I'm back at school. Tianyang on the other end of the phone couldn't control his emotions and cried intermittently, saying these words. Yang Yang, wait for me, Mom is here. Qin Shuzhen quickly finished this sentence and turned around to rush out, even throwing the bread in her hand on the ground. Guangming behind him didn't care about the bread on the ground and ran towards the direction of the school. Together on the way to school, Qin Shuzhen ran forward with a smile, allowing tears of joy to be blown away on her face by the wind, and ignoring the strange gazes of pedestrians. Even if the child's father kept calling her to slow down behind her, she didn't care because she only wanted to see her Yang Yang earlier. 10 minutes, it took her 10 minutes. Qin Shuzhen rushed into the boys' dormitory building at her fastest speed, and all the boys who saw her recognized her because she had been to every boys' dormitory for almost a month. But today is different because they all know why she is so crazy, because her child has returned. First floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor. In the corridor on the fourth floor, with eyes facing each other, time seems to have entered a state of stillness. Tianyang walked slowly to his mother and then knelt down with a thud. Then his entire head was held in Qin Shuzhen's arms, and tears fell down again at this moment. The entire dormitory corridor was crowded with people, even his homeroom teacher, Teacher Cheng, was among them. When Tianyang was slowly helped up by Qin Shuzhen, Guangming also arrived and the family hugged each other again. Papa, Papa. I don't know who was the first to take the lead. Clear applause rang out in the quiet corridor, then more and more, and then instantly became roaring. Some even blew whistles, then cheered, and everyone present sincerely applauded and shouted for their family's reunion. The applause lasted for a long time. All right, everyone has dispersed. Those who haven't eaten should go eat quickly, and those who have eaten should take a good lunch break. After applause fell, the dormitory supervisor teacher stood up. As the crowd slowly dispersed, what remained were Tianyang's roommates, his parents, and his homeroom teacher, Teacher Cheng. Tianyang slowly walked up to the homeroom teacher and said, "Teacher Cheng." Teacher Cheng has obviously just cried, and the tear marks on his face have not dried through yet. Let's accompany your parents to the cafeteria for dinner first. After dinner, come back to my office. Teacher Cheng left a sentence, then turned around and went downstairs. Let's go, uncle and auntie. Let's go eat together. It's my treat today. Huang Furong and others walked over. How can I invite you to treat me? You are classmates of Yang Yang, and now you are still students. Uncle is treating me today. Guangming felt very happy and seemed much younger. How about that? It was agreed that I would treat you today, right, Tianyang? Huang Furong turned to Tianyang. Dad, you can let him invite you. He is a famous second-generation rich student in our class. A group of people walked happily towards the cafeteria. The cafeteria of Jiangnan Medical College is very large, with a total of 8 restaurants, including fast food and specialty dishes. Due to the large number of people, Huang Furong directly arranged a private room and a large table with 7 meat and 8 vegetarian dishes. Come, let's replace wine with tea to celebrate the safe return of Tianyang. Cheers. Cheers. The whole private room was filled with a strong sense of joy, whether it was joyful or not. After lunch, Guangming and Qin Shuzhen left the school, but Qin Shuzhen still felt a bit reluctant, afraid that her child would be lost again. However, there was no way she could do it. The child still had to attend classes in the afternoon, so she couldn't tie them to her belt. It wasn't until Tianyang agreed to go to the rental house to find them after school that Qin Shuzhen finally confirmed her departure from the school. Tianyang took out the phone that his father had just given him and prepared to call his sister Meihan, but found that his call records were as many as hundreds. Tianyang speculated that it must have been during this period that his parents had called all his contacts in order to find him, and his heart couldn't help but feel heartbroken. Perhaps only parents in this world can make ordinary things so crazy. After talking to his younger sister on the phone, Tianyang went to the office of the homeroom teacher Cheng Xiuwen. Tell me, what exactly happened? Teacher Cheng showed a questioning attitude as soon as he saw Tianyang. What's that, Teacher Cheng? I can't explain this clearly either. I just came down from the back mountain that day and met a couple who said they didn't know the way and asked me to take them with me. However, shortly after getting on the car, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was locked up in a factory where people taught us every day and even said they wanted to take us abroad to make a fortune. I finally managed to escape. Tianyang recited the long thought-out speech in its entirety. Really? You won't lie to me, will you? How could I possibly deceive you? Do you think anyone would abandon their loved ones for no reason and disappear for a month? Tianyang said seriously. Okay, come with me to the police station tomorrow morning to withdraw the case. Now, you can go back to the dormitory to rest. Okay, then. Goodbye, Teacher Cheng. Tianyang watched as he was passing the test and quickly applied oil on his feet before returning to the dormitory. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when everyone arrived at the classroom to prepare for class, an air raid alarm sounded over the entire city. Then, Tianyang saw all the students in the class stand up and bow their heads in silence. What's going on? Why is there a moment of silence? Today is June 10th, and it doesn't seem like it's a disaster anniversary in history, right? Tianyang was very puzzled, but he still stood up together and spent a long minute in silence. As soon as he sat down, Tianyang couldn't wait to ask Huang Furong, the Fu, what day is today? Why is there a moment of silence? Huang Furong looked at Tianyang and said, you don't know. That's right. I actually forgot that day happened to be the day you went missing. It's like this. After you went out at noon that day, I was wondering why you didn't come back for afternoon class. As a result, there was a slight shaking throughout the entire teaching building, followed by someone shouting, earthquake. At that time, we didn't pay much attention because the tremor was not significant and passed quickly. However, when we opened our phones for the next class, we found that the entire network was filled with news of earthquakes. Tianyang opened his phone to search for relevant information and found that the earthquake occurred just over an hour after he fell into the sinkhole. Chapter 8. I used to be just relatively low. Key. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. There are a total of 2 classes in the afternoon. The first class is a traditional Chinese medicine theory class. For academic achievers like Tianyang, he is already familiar with the knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine theory in his first year of university, so this class is equivalent to Tianyang's review class. The second class is a traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis class, with classes 1, 2, and 3 closing together in the large classroom. It is taught by visiting Professor Li Rui from Jiangnan Medical College. Li Rui is a well-known expert in the provincial traditional Chinese medicine hospital and can be said to be a leading figure in the field of traditional Chinese medicine in Jiangnan province. Therefore, not only are the 3 classes of the traditional Chinese medicine department attending this class together, but many teachers will also attend. Tianyang and the others packed their textbooks and walked towards the big classroom one after another. Just as Tianyang arrived at the entrance of the main classroom, the 4 boys looked at him as if they had seen a ghost. They were Zhao Liang, the 4 of them who had knocked Tianyang unconscious and left the sinkhole. As Zhao Liang and his classmates were in class 3, and they went to eat outside the school at noon, they didn't know about Tianyang's return. Tianyang looked at the 4 of them, smiled slightly, as if nothing had happened, and then sat down in the same row as his roommates. But Zhao Liang and the 4 of them became increasingly puzzled, thinking to themselves, how could anyone meet their killer without any emotion? In order to further understand the situation, they chose to sit in 2 rows behind Tianyang. At this moment, many students were still coming in one after another. Just as Tianyang took out his notebook from his backpack, 2 beautiful figures appeared at the entrance of the big classroom. They were the 2 class flowers of class 2, Ning Shui and Bai Lu. For a moment, all the male students' eyes were focused on the second daughter. What a sin! Why are both the beautiful women in class 2, and none of us in class 1 or class 3? Huang Furong sighed at the unfairness of fate on the side. Don't think about it, what if we have a new class? Do you think you can handle it? Tianyang gave him a heartless blow. What do I need to do? It's okay to take a look every day. If I were to attend classes with such top-notch students every day, my grades would improve by a few grades, right? Huang Furong seemed to say solemnly. Okay, then you should take a good look now, my Dr. Huang. Just as Tianyang finished speaking, he saw the second daughter come to Tianyang's side. Can we sit here? Bai Lu spoke, while Ning Shui's gaze remained fixed on Tianyang. Tianyang is a bit speechless, why do you have to sit next to me? You know, last time I was beaten to death by someone just because I had dinner with you. It's possible, it's very possible, please sit down, two classmates. Huang Furong was overjoyed in his heart. At the invitation of Huang Furong, Ning Shui took the lead in sitting next to Yi Tianyang, while Bai Lu sat in the aisle seat. You're back. Where have you been these days? Not long after sitting down, Ning Shui asked Yi Tianyang. Well, I'm back, I've been to a far place. Yi Tianyang actually wanted to say that I was knocked unconscious and sent to another world because I had dinner with you, but he knew that if he really told all his experiences truthfully, everyone might think he had a brain problem. To be honest, in Yi Tianyang's opinion, he doesn't think he is very familiar with Ning Shui. It's just that during the last group class, Yi Tianyang accidentally helped her out. She invited him to have a meal in the cafeteria as a thank you, and they didn't even talk except that time. I remember it was a prescription study class, and the teacher randomly called on Ning Shui to tell her 6 or more commonly used pediatric prescriptions. However, they were only freshmen and there were already few pediatric courses, making it a bit difficult for her to memorize the 6 prescriptions at once. So she relied on her basic knowledge and reluctantly gathered 2 more prescriptions. However, even the teacher had not heard of these 2 prescriptions, so when the teacher asked her to explain the pharmacology of the prescriptions, she was speechless for a moment. At that time, Yi Tianyang stood up and explained the pharmacology of the 2 prescriptions clearly, helping her resolve the embarrassing crisis. Although Yi Tianyang did not take that matter to heart, Ning Shui firmly portrayed him in her heart. She is a person who values talent, and there are not many peers she can admire. Yi Tianyang must be one of them. Although Yi Tianyang was a renowned academic expert in traditional Chinese medicine for a long time, you only know how great he is when it falls on you. Hello classmates. Hello teacher. A professor in his 50s stood on the podium, and he was the renowned Chinese medicine expert Li Rui. Classmates, today I will be the main lecturer in this traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis class. Diagnosis is the first and most important step for you to enter the workplace in the future, because only by correctly diagnosing the disease can you determine the type of disease and make the right treatment. If your diagnosis is incorrect, not only will it fail to solve the patient's problem, but it may also worsen the condition and even cause medical accidents. Based on my more than 30 years of clinical experience, I have summarized 7 commonly used diagnostic methods. With Professor Li Rui's practical experience sharing, every student in the audience listened attentively. It should be noted that such grandiose expert lectures are not frequent, and they are usually taught by the attending physician. Classes are predominant. Professor Li Rui's classes are vivid, all of which come from practical work, so everyone can easily understand them. So much so that in the entire classroom, except for Professor Li's lectures, there is only the sound of classmates taking notes. Alright, classmates. That's basically all for today's lesson. There's still some time left, so I'll communicate with my classmates and test everyone's learning outcomes. Professor Li highlighted the final part of the class. Okay, let me get started. How should traditional Chinese medicine diagnose gynecological diseases? Please raise your hand. Professor Li asked the first question. As soon as Professor Li finished speaking, more than 10 classmates immediately raised their hands. Okay, the boy wearing glasses in the 5th row, please answer. For the diagnosis of gynecological diseases, we should divide into 2 steps. The first step is to preliminarily distinguish whether the patient belongs to the problem of qi and blood or bacterial infection through the common way of seeing, hearing and inquiring in traditional Chinese medicine. The second step is to use acupuncture and moxibustion to prick blood to further check the patient's loss of qi and blood if it is a problem of qi and blood. If it is a problem of bacterial or viral infection, we can combine modern testing equipment to carry out more refined inspection to make an accurate diagnosis. The glasses male student answered fluently. Classmate, please sit down. You answered very well. Next question, if someone asks you to help them see a doctor, but the patient is very resistant to seeing a doctor and unwilling to cooperate. What diagnostic method should you adopt? Professor Li then threw the second question. How can this be diagnosed? Patients don't even want to have contact with doctors. Who has that ability? Yeah, traditional Chinese medicine is not about perspective. How can one see a doctor without contact? For a moment, not only did no one raise their hand in the audience, but there were also discussions. Professor Li wasn't in a hurry either. He picked up a thermos and started drinking health tea. In fact, he didn't expect to find the answer here because it was his friend who consulted him a few days ago. His friend was Zhang Wanlin, the richest man in Jiangnan. Zhang Wanlin told him that his father often fell for no reason recently, but he didn't think he had any physical problems and didn't want to go to the hospital for examination. This problem made him, a top domestic expert, difficult. So he just casually threw this question out to see if he could get some inspiration from young students. And just when everyone didn't know how to answer, a handsome boy stood up. This person was none other than Tianyang. Li Rui was also a bit surprised at this moment. He didn't expect anyone to step up and answer this question. Hello, classmate. Please share your viewpoint. Returning to Professor Li, I believe that there is only one way to diagnose whether a patient has any physical problems when they are unwilling to see a doctor, and that is the method of observing qi. If it were before practicing, Tianyang would not dare to answer this way, but since he practiced, his sensitivity to the heavenly and earthly breath has become superb, which is why he dared to say so. Observing qi method. This student, please explain your diagnostic method in detail. Li Rui was a bit surprised as he had heard this method for the first time. Although it was a bit unbelievable, he was still very interested in listening to it. Our lives are inseparable from airtightness. If a person loses their breath, they are not called living. Therefore, everyone's health can be judged by the breath they emit. For example, if I observe Professor Li's waist qi is weak and loose, I know you have been feeling uncomfortable in the lumbar spine recently. If I observe the student behind you with a bloated face and breath, and lifeless eyes, I know you have been staying up too late lately. If I observe the student next to me exhaling unevenly and sinking qi and blood, I know you must be a relative. Haha. As soon as Tianyang finished speaking, the whole audience burst into laughter, while Bai Lu sitting next to him wished to find a hole to burrow in, because it was she who Tianyang had just talked about. Although there was Ning Shui in the middle, she couldn't help but pinch Tianyang with her hand. But Professor Li Rui on stage didn't pay attention to these details, and couldn't help but walk to the vicinity of Tianyang. Genius, definitely a genius. He has never encountered such a master in all these years of medical practice, who can easily tell someone else's physical condition at a glance. How could he not be excited? Classmate, what's your name? Li Rui asked urgently. Teacher, my name is Tianyang. Tianyang had not yet sat down. Okay. Okay. Very good. I wonder if you have time this weekend. If you have time, I would like to invite you to a place. Is it the weekend? Will it be too long? Tianyang originally planned to spend all the weekends with his parents. No, at most half a day. How about I come and pick you up then? Li Rui looked at him eagerly. Okay, then let's do it on Saturday afternoon. Tianyang could see that he was very sincere, so he couldn't bear to refuse him. Then they exchanged contact information. However, what surprised everyone was that Professor Li stopped asking questions after receiving Tianyang's contact information, and eagerly announced the end of class. He quickly ran away like picking up a treasure, leaving behind his bewildered classmates. Tianyang, are you going to die? Who are you looking at? Why are you looking at me? Professor Li had just walked out when a voice like chili peppers erupted next to Tianyang. This person was Bai Lu, who had just been spotted by Tianyang in public. Unlike the tranquil beauty of Ning Shui, Bai Lu belongs to a more lively and straightforward personality, cursing and even reaching out, giving Tianyang a scolding. Tianyang also feels a bit regretful for being too talkative. Why did he just show off? Getting into trouble with this sister-in-law is really embarrassing now. So there was a lively scene of a boy running in front and a girl chasing around the desk from behind. And other classmates also don't mind the big picture, some even whistle. Ah, why can't this beautiful punishment come to me? On the way back from class, Huang Furong looked enviously at Tianyang's torn shirt. I'm talking about Brother Yang, why didn't I know you were so powerful before? Look at Professor Li's rare appearance, maybe he'll take you as a disciple to close the door. At this moment, Peng Tao and the others followed suit. Well, what? Actually, I have had this talent for a long time, but I used to be relatively low-key. Tianyang's words left everyone speechless. Big brother, do you call it low-key before? Every time you take an exam, you always rank first in the entire department. Are you afraid you have any misunderstandings about the word low-key? Huang Furong admired his brother deeply and said, no, next time you pretend to be forced to bring me along. Okay, next time I'll make you the #1 male lead, okay, my Dr. Huang. No, I want to be Director Huang, specifically in charge of you to be cool, hahaha. Chapter 9. The Controversy of Physical Education Classes. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Returning to the dormitory in changing clothes, Tianyang was preparing to go to his parents' rental house because he had promised his mother at noon to accompany them tonight. After greeting his roommates, Tianyang walked towards the back door of the school. After leaving the back door, he saw Wanshou Mountain to the left, which was the big mountain where Tianyang was left in the sinkhole. To the right, there were densely packed self-built houses. Due to the new campus in the suburbs where Tianyang and his classmates were located, the prices outside the school were very cheap. Tianyang had already used his divine sense to check his parents on the phone, so he knew their specific addresses very well. However, Tianyang was not in a hurry to go to his parents' rental house. Instead, he headed left towards the hillside and continued up the path. Tianyang found a hidden place and then took out a spiritual stone from the ring. Suddenly, a gentle spiritual energy came in. Tianyang has never actually practiced with spirit stones before, because he initially practiced in higher quality spiritual fluids. Therefore, ordinary spirit stones are not very helpful for his cultivation now, unless they are high-level spirit stones in the immortal sword formation. Tianyang used his elemental power to manipulate the spirit stone and refine it into a pendant the size of an ordinary jade pendant. He then sent a divine idea into the jade pendant. After 10 attempts, the 10 jade pendants with divine marks were refined, and these 10 jade pendants were undoubtedly prepared by Tianyang to be given to his loved ones. However, Tianyang did not stop, and then he took out the spirit stone to refine 10 jade pendants without any divine imprints, and together they were sent into the storage ring. As for why he had to refine 10 more jade pendants, it was prepared by Tianyang to improve his living environment. He had already cultivated immortality, so he couldn't let his parents go out to work. After finishing all of this, Tianyang quickly arrived at the sinkhole. Without anyone around, Tianyang didn't want to waste time. Divine consciousness kept exploring towards the bottom of the sinkhole, and Tianyang discovered that the depth of the sinkhole exceeded 10,000 meters, and there was indeed an undirected teleportation array hidden at the bottom of the sinkhole. There are actually many good things hidden here. Under the exploration of Tianyang's divine sense, the treasures at the bottom of the pit were visible. However, Tianyang did not touch these treasures because he knew that the formation at the bottom needed these treasures to maintain its operation. In the future, he would definitely have to enter a small world, and it was impossible for him to destroy the formation for the sake of the treasures. Tianyang turned around and covered his mind at the foot of the mountain, preparing to escape directly to a deserted spot. However, He noticed that there were 4 people gathered under a big tree not far from the foot of the mountain, and these 4 people were none other than Zhao Liang. His mother, I can't fight when I see Yi Tianyang's local dog with Ning Shui. Zhao Liang kicked the tree trunk. Brother Liang, don't you want to pull him out and beat him up again? I dare not. Do you know how I've been living this month? I'm scared every day, afraid of an incident. Fortunately, Yi Tianyang is fine, so Brother Liang, don't ask us to beat him again. Wang Xiaoqi was really scared. Yes, Brother Liang, after all, we are still students and cannot always do illegal things. Zhou Wen also came up to persuade Zhao Liang. But why is Yi Tianyang sitting with Ning Shui? A local dog from the countryside, is he worthy of Ning Shui? Zhao Liang said and kicked the tree trunk again. Brother Liang, then Yi Tianyang is nothing more than good academic performance. He has been in the spotlight twice in class. Let's find an opportunity to step on him and let Ning Shui watch him collapse. I believe that by then, Ning Shui won't think Yi Tianyang is so excellent. He Bing, who was standing beside him, thought of some idea. Yeah, why didn't I think of it? Tell me quickly, what's the way to make him look ugly? Zhao Liang's eyes suddenly lit up. It's not easy. Tomorrow is Friday, and the last class in the morning is physical education. I looked at the schedule of one class, and it happened that one class was also physical education, so, you know. He Bing said with a proud expression. Hee. That's really a good idea. When the time comes, upload the video to various communication groups on campus and see what kind of face he still has. Yi Tianyang, please wait for me. Zhao Liang smiled mischievously at this moment. For a moment, Yi Tianyang felt speechless about their conversation. He had originally planned not to argue with you because he felt that this matter was also a blessing in disguise for them. However, since you still dare to provoke me, then don't blame me for being impolite. With Yi Tianyang's current cultivation level, he no longer cares about the strategies of these ordinary people, because it will definitely not be him who will suffer a humiliating blow in the future. Yi Tianyang took a step and arrived at a deserted place at the foot of the mountain, then walked towards his parents' rental house. Qin Shuzhen was extremely happy today. In the afternoon, she not only went to buy a lot of vegetables, but also bought a lot of snacks and fruits that Yi Tianyang usually likes to eat. When Yi Tianyang arrived at the yard, he saw his parents busy frying vegetables in the public kitchen on the first floor. Dad, Mom. When Yi Tianyang's voice sounded, Qin Shuzhen ran out of the kitchen happily, while Yi Guangming continued to stir-fry the food in the pan. The child's father, the kitchen is left to you. Qin Shuzhen picked up Yi Tianyang's hand and walked towards the bedroom on the 3rd floor. Yi Tianyang looked at the house his parents rented and felt very uncomfortable. The whole room only had one bed, 2 stools, a small table, no kitchen, no bathroom, and a rope fixed with nails on both sides of the walls, hanging a few of their clothes. Sit down, let your dad borrow a chair from below later, Qin Shuzhen said as she pulled out a large bag of snacks from under the bed. Mom, you've suffered. Yi Tianyang hugged his mother into his arms, tears rolling in his eyes. Qin Shuzhen remained silent and was quietly held by her own child. After a long time, Yi Tianyang slowly released Qin Shuzhen and then sat down separately. Qin Shuzhen kept stuffing snacks into Yi Tianyang's hands, and Yi Tianyang didn't refuse because he knew that the more he ate, the happier his mother would be. Qin Shuzhen quietly watched as Yi Tianyang ate snacks, as if this was the happiest thing in the world. Shuzhen, come down and serve the dishes. Yi Guangming's voice came from downstairs. Mom, I'll go down too. Yi Tianyang followed suit. For almost a month now, Qin Shuzhen and her family have rarely cooked, mostly noodles and bread, because the elderly couple don't want to waste their time looking for their son on cooking. But today there are 6 hard dishes, all of which are what Yi Tianyang likes to eat on a regular basis. In order to make his parents happy, Tianyang ate a large portion of it alone. After dinner, Tianyang took out 3 pre-prepared jade pendants. Mom and Dad, each of you has 1 jade pendant, and the other is for your sister. Tianyang stood up and prepared to bring them with his own hands. Where did this jade pendant come from? Qin Shuzhen asked curiously. On my way of escape, I encountered a jade-making boss who fainted on the street. I used my medical skills to treat him, and the boss insisted on giving me a precious jade to thank me. I thought it was inconvenient to carry the jade, so I asked the boss to make multiple jade pendants out of it. It's strange to say. After carrying the jade pendant with me, I had a smooth journey and never encountered any bad people chasing after me again. Tianyang spoke out his pre-planned words. So, that should be very valuable. How much is it worth? Qin Shuzhen touched the jade pendant on her chest. Mom, you don't have to worry about his price. Just remember that this is your son's blessing. Bring it with you every day, and our family will be safe and never separate. Tianyang helped his father put it on after putting it on for his mother. Okay. I will wear it every day, but for your sister, you should personally give it to her because she will come over tomorrow night. Qin Shuzhen put the remaining jade pendant back into Tianyang's hand. Will Xiaoyu come tomorrow night? Tianyang was extremely happy to hear this news. Yes, her homeroom teacher happens to be from Changsha. She will take her homeroom teacher's car tomorrow after school. Qin Shuzhen is also very happy because the family can reunite tomorrow evening. That's great, I'll go pick her up tomorrow. No need to take it over. Her homeroom teacher will send her over directly. You can come over directly after school tomorrow. Tianyang put away the jade pendant and then talked to his parents about his grandparents, grandmother, and other things about his hometown so, without realizing it, it was almost 9 o'clock before he finally saw his mother yawning. He decided to go back to school because he knew his parents had definitely not slept well during this period. Tianyang used a dozing trick, and his parents couldn't bear to lie in bed. Then there was another trick, and all the dishes on the table became clean. After finishing these, Tianyang gently closed the door and began walking towards the school. Returning to the dormitory, Huang Furong and the others were still awake. Some were reading, some were playing games, and some were washing up. Tianyang, you're back. Should I play with you? Huang Furong turned his head to look at him. No, I'm tired today and want to rest. You can play. Tianyang made up an excuse and lay down in bed. But in fact, Tianyang is not tired at all. He is almost at the golden elixir, how could he be tired? He said this just to make this brother go to bed earlier. Tianyang lay in bed and then used a drowsy trick. Everyone began to feel drowsy, and then went to bed one after another. Just as everyone fell asleep, Tianyang, the first person to lie down, sat up from the bed and walked to the balcony, trying to operate the Zhu Tian sword technique. He was surprised to find that he could feel the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Earth can also cultivate. This was Tianyang's momentary reaction. Although the spiritual energy was very thin, he was certain that there was spiritual energy on earth. This also made him determined to go out and take a look after summer vacation. Maybe he could find a place to form pills on earth. The next morning, Tianyang went to class as usual. Although these courses were of little use to him, he still had to take his time to complete what he needed to do in the short term, so that his parents would no longer worry. The first one is the theory of traditional Chinese medicine, the second one is acupuncture and moxibustion, and the third one is our favorite physical education class. At this time, there are several other classes on the basketball court also having physical education classes. The physical education class in university is actually a free activity class. After the physical education teacher led everyone to do a warm-up exercise, they let them exercise on their own. Most of the sports activities for boys are ball games, and what Tianyang likes is football. However, as soon as he was about to go to the football field, he was stopped by a voice. Does anyone in Class 1 dare to play basketball with Class 3? The person who said this was Zhao Liang's little follower He Bing. What does dare mean? What's so impressive about your third class? It's just a basketball game, isn't it? Just come over and let it go. Zhang Chong, the sports committee member of the first class, walked out. Ha! Isn't this the top student in our department? Why are you still playing football? Do you dare to play a game of basketball? He Bing suddenly turned to Yi Tianyang. Yi Tianyang sneered at the corners of his mouth, probably the plan they discussed yesterday to embarrass me. However, Yi Tianyang wouldn't do as they had hoped. Although he doesn't play basketball much in his daily life, with his current peak of cultivation, it would definitely be easy to win over these ordinary people. Why not? Just come and do it. Since you have the courage to fight, do you have the courage to add some excitement? He Bing deliberately raised his voice. What kind of gimmicks? Can you tell me first? Zhang Chong asked in reverse. Tell me what? I'm afraid you won't agree if I say it out loud. He Bing looked as if he had the chance to win. You tell me, no matter what kind of lottery you three classes want, our first class will continue. At this moment, Yi Tianyang stood up and thought to himself, since you want to play, let's play with you well. Okay. Since the top students have all agreed, I'll say it. If one party loses, then buy a bottle of black tea for each of the victorious parties, and say the phrase, please have tea, big brother, one by one. You're too impolite, right? How could you come up with such a derogatory gimmick? Yeah. How could that be? As soon as He Bing finished speaking, the first class of students expressed dissatisfaction. Oh no. I dare not anymore. Is it difficult for your class to lose confidence? He Bing continued to provoke everyone in the class with unpleasant words. Stop talking nonsense, let's start. Yi Tianyang didn't want to watch such a villain's performance for a moment, and directly made both sides go to war. Okay, you have the guts. Then let's go on stage. Zhao Liang saw Yi Tianyang's statement, and he no longer stood behind. Both sides began to compete for the ball, and the ball was seized by Class 1. Yi Tianyang quickly penetrated into the basket, and the student holding the ball understood it in seconds, passing the ball directly for assistance. Bang! Directly connect and explode the buckle. What? So powerful. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded, and the group cheered incessantly. Some even regretted not taking out their phones in time to record it. Class 3 serves, and Yi Tianyang is even too lazy to go back to defend. When the ball is passed out from outside by Class 3's ball handler, Yi Tianyang steals it instantly and then directly slams it. What? Didn't even pass the ball. Another dunk. All three of them were confused. And on this side of the class, it's really amazing. The girls on the sidelines were crazy with words like, so handsome, so cool and so on. The third goal, in order to avoid conceding the ball, Class 3 directly put two people in a trap against Yi Tianyang. Yi Tianyang didn't want to act too crazy, so he chose to go straight back to defend and then attack the opponent from under the basket. Zhao Liang saw Yi Tianyang under the basket, smiled at the corner of his mouth, and then demanded the ball. Kid, you like to dunk, don't you? Then I'll ride on you and dunk. Zhao Liang held the ball and headed towards the basket. Dribbling, jumping, and unleashing a dunk, bang. The basketball was fanned away, and then Zhang Chong grabbed the ball in the front court, followed by a series of explosive dunks. Crazy, crazy, a class of classmates is completely crazy at this time. The team members of Class 3 had no idea what to do. What should we do? Brother Liang, Yi Tianyang is too strong. He Bing asked Zhao Liang for advice. At this moment, Zhao Liang also had a bewildered expression on his face, but he still gave an idea. You are 3 points accurate. Next, you can pitch 3 points, no matter what, open the score first. But when he Bing took the 3-point shot, a pair of big hands grabbed the basketball directly from the air. What? Can we all grab this? As such situations became more frequent, the third-class members completely entered the numbness stage. If it were a normal class competition, Tianyang would definitely not behave like this, but since the other party wants to deliberately embarrass him, then he will let the other party embarrass him to the end. At the end of the first quarter of the competition, Class 1 scored 46 points, while Class 3's score remained at 0. Do we still have to fight? Zhang Chong looked at the team members of Class 3. At this moment, no one in Class 3 dared to speak and all lowered their heads. Just as Zhang Chong wanted to confirm again, a team member finally started shaking their heads, one after another, and finally everyone agreed to terminate the game. Remember to cash in the lottery. Zhang Chong dropped a sentence and went to the sidelines to rest. 10 minutes later, the team members of Class 3 began to fulfill their promises, but Zhao Liang was nowhere to be seen. Tianyang had long guessed that he would not appear at this stage, but he didn't care either. He just hoped that after this incident, this kid could be honest. Chapter 10. Women's Thoughts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianyang and his team returned to the dormitory to cool down, and the various communication groups and campus forums of Jiangnan Medical College were completely crazy. No one, whether it was classmates or teachers, had ever seen such a game before. The whole game was dominated by opponents, and they were absolutely defeated by a score of 46.0. Such a result is probably impossible for an NBA team to achieve, and the performance of Tianyang, the main player of the first class, is even more impressive. It can be said that each of his shots is definitely the top 10 goals in any game in the world today. For these reactions, Tianyang did not have any fluctuations. In his view as a quasi-golden pill cultivator, these are all minor issues and there is nothing to be alarmed about. Dong dong dong. Tianyang and his dormitory door were knocked on. When Tianyang opened the door, he saw more than a dozen boys gathered in the corridor at the entrance, led by Sports Commissioner Zhang Chong. Tianyang, let's go to the cafeteria together and celebrate. It's my treat. Normally, Zhang Chong wouldn't say anything about inviting Tianyang to dinner. Because he, as a sports commissioner, is not on the same side as a top student, but he is so happy today. He has never played such a fun game before. Alright. It's really time to celebrate. Those 3 classes are usually too arrogant, especially Zhao Liang. He used to be a local of Changsha and his family raised some money, so today he gave them a good lesson. Huang Furong immediately responded, thinking it should be celebrated. Okay, that's it. Tianyang said when he saw the Fu, and he didn't want to ruin everyone's mood. You know, he didn't plan to go to the cafeteria for a meal because the food in the cafeteria was too greasy, which not only didn't help his body, but he also had to spend his spiritual energy to clear out these things after eating. The group walked towards the cafeteria, and on the way, people kept recognizing Tianyang. Wow! I turned out to be so handsome. Yeah. I used to think that the handsome guys in the college were all in the clinical department of Western medicine, but I didn't expect that the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine also has such top-notch handsome guys. Oh my! I knew I had chosen traditional Chinese medicine too. What kind of nursing should I study? A few girls on the road didn't know if they intentionally wanted to be heard by Tianyang, but their voices didn't go down very low, so much so that Tianyang and his group almost all heard their conversation. This also makes Tianyang's classmates feel relieved. You should know that nursing girls usually don't look at their traditional Chinese medicine department with a straight eye, always thinking that traditional Chinese medicine is a pseudoscience. But today, they are fooled by the male students in our traditional Chinese medicine department. How can they be unhappy? Although they all knew in their hearts that these people were coming for Tianyang. Arriving at the cafeteria, Zhang Chong chose a private room with 2 tables because he did not invite a girl over. Therefore, if more than 20 boys crowded together, 2 tables would also be available. Due to the fact that the cafeteria is not a high-consumption place, the main dish is served quickly, and soon, all the dishes will be served. At this moment, Zhang Chong stood up with a drink in his hand. Come, classmates. Today, let's raise our glasses together to celebrate an unprecedented game we played. Although this game was just a regular sparring between classes, it was definitely one of the most enjoyable games that I, Zhang Chong, have ever played in my life. So, let's raise our glasses together to pay tribute to our greatest hero, Tianyang. It was your superb football skills and explosive physical strength that enabled us to achieve this feat. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Everyone drank it all at once, even though it was a beverage. Everyone at this moment was intoxicated by this atmosphere, and Tianyang was no exception. Isn't that the happiness of life? Enjoying the purest happiness at the purest age, without any interest relationship, but as if possessing the most precious thing. Perhaps this is a picture that only exists in the campus era. Dong dong. The waiter knocked on the door and saw 2 consecutive plates of exquisite dishes being served on the table. This. Waiter, did you make a mistake? This is not what I ordered. Our dishes have already been served, haven't we? Zhang Chong immediately realized. That's right, this was ordered by a classmate named Ning Shui for you, and there are 3 dishes left behind. The waiter replied and then left. Ah. Ning Shui. Tianyang, this. Zhang Chong looked at Tianyang. It's okay, they just gave us something to eat. Tianyang started using his chopsticks first. Okay, let's rely on the blessings of Tianyang. You're welcome, hee. Zhang Chong smiled and picked up a chopstick. Most of the students present are usually fast food, and sometimes they just treat themselves to instant noodles in the dormitory. There is no place to indulge like today, so when they heard that there will be additional dishes later, everyone opened up and ate to their heart's content. Tianyang, to be honest, your game this morning was really explosive. I think you could have made it to the national team, Huang Furong said while eating. The national team. In my opinion, it's more than enough to enter the NBA. De Fu, you don't usually love sports. Just the performance of Tianyang in that game, there are not many NBA players who can do it. My roommate Peng Tao said excitedly and stood up. Tianyang's level is indeed extraordinary, but we usually only watch NBA games online. To be specific, we need to have played NBA players before we know. So, Tianyang, why don't you try playing professional football? Zhang Chong looked at Tianyang. I'm not interested in these things. Tianyang doesn't want to waste time on these things, because cultivation is his most important thing. Just as everyone was burying their heads in cooking, the waiter came in again, and 2 servers pushed a double-decker dining cart, suddenly serving several more dishes in a row. Waiter, it seems like this is not right. Didn't you just say that there were only 3 dishes left behind? I see that you have served 6 or 7 dishes consecutively at each table. Did you really make a mistake this time? Zhang Chong looked at the more dishes he ate on the table, his face bewildered. Handsome guy, there's no mistake. A classmate named Bailu also ordered 5 dishes for you, and another classmate named Meng Yao ordered 6 dishes for you. The waiter said that the entire private room was silent. Everyone, take a look at me and I will take a look at you. If Ning Shui and Bailu help them order dishes, they can still understand because Tianyang had an interaction with them before. But how can Meng Yao not shock them when she orders dishes for them? You should know that Meng Yao is not only the flower of clinical surgery in Western medicine, but also recognized as the first goddess of the entire Jiangnan Medical College. Tianyang, do you know Meng Yao? Peng Tao widened his eyes and looked at Tianyang. I don't know. Tianyang shook his head. Hi, why bother with so much? Meng Yao just needs to know him. Now that Tianyang's video of playing basketball has spread throughout the college, Meng Yao must have been deeply fascinated by us Tianyang. De Fu's words reveal the mystery. Zhang Chong believed that Huang Furong's words made sense. Don't talk nonsense, it's not good to ruin someone's reputation. Even if you have something to eat, you can't stop your mouth. Tianyang glanced at De Fu. Ha ha ha. Yes, we just focus on eating and don't say anything else. So, due to the addition of food by the 3 female classmates, a meal ended at 1:30 p.m. At this time, except for the staff cleaning up, there was hardly anyone else in the cafeteria. Let's go straight to the classroom. There's less than half an hour left until class time. Go straight to the classroom, it takes 5 minutes to walk back to the dormitory, there's no need. In this way, they collectively arrived in the classroom more than 20 minutes earlier than ever before. What's the situation? I'll be obedient. When everyone arrived at the classroom, their expressions were all stunned because they saw that Tianyang's desk was filled with gifts. Now even Tianyang himself can't handle it anymore. Someone just gave them food to eat, but how should he handle this table full of gifts? He used to see in the media that some fans would give gifts to their favorite celebrities, but he never thought that such things would happen to him. Wow, Tianyang, your peach blossom luck is here. Huang Furong joked to Tianyang. Peach blossom, why don't you help find a way to deal with it? Tianyang gave him a displeased look. How can I help you? If I open it and see those numb flesh, I'm afraid I won't be able to bear it. I've already eaten too much at noon, haven't I, brothers? Yeah. We can't help with this kind of thing. Yes, the person who unties the bell still needs to tie the bell. Everyone spoke to each other, leaving Tianyang with no choice but to go to the hygiene corner and find a big bag to pack all the gifts. The other students each returned to their seats, while others wanted to take a nap while there was still time. Look, there seems to be someone peeking outside the window in the back row, suddenly a classmate said. Everyone turned around and indeed found a few foreign girls, but when they saw more than 20 boys staring at them, they quickly ran away. However, not long after this wave of girls left, a few more girls came, and as class time approached, more and more girls outside the window, and even some boys came to watch. I'll go. Is our traditional Chinese medicine class about to turn the tide? At this moment, everyone had this idea in their hearts. Until the class bell rang, these people slowly left. The first class in the afternoon is English class. Although Tianyang studied traditional Chinese medicine, English is still one of the mandatory courses to be taken. Although Tianyang is known as a top student, due to the learning environment, English is not his forte. However, the feeling of today's class is completely different. He can easily understand the content taught by the teacher, and he can deeply understand it. It seems that he is not only learning a course, but also mastering a rule. Tianyang knows that this is because he cultivates immortality. Cultivating immortality is about understanding the rules of heaven and earth and exploring the supreme path. Therefore, it is very easy for him to learn these courses with his current foundation building peak cultivation. After the first class, English teacher Zhang Xiuying came to Tianyang. Tianyang, you're playing well. I give you a big thumbs up. After speaking, he left the classroom with a sweet smile. Tianyang couldn't help but feel a little speechless. How did this woman's heart grow? Normally, he doesn't receive this treatment even if he takes the first place in the entire department. But now, just because he played a game, he has attracted so much attention from the opposite sex. He is both a gift giver and a food giver, even the English teacher came to praise him. Sigh. A woman's mind is complex.